The sky is just a massive angry storm vortex, dark and oppressive, when suddenly this bolt of blue-white lightning just cracks it wide open, with raw electrical energy lighting up the clouds, before it absolutely nukes the ground with insane power. And who's standing right at ground zero? A broad-shouldered dude with short hair, totally unfazed by the chaos. Rain is just pouring down his muscular frame, but his eyes are still ice-cold and sharp, and the ground beneath him is cracking from the sheer shockwave, rolling out from where he stands. This tells you right away he's no low-level mob. This is Dan Wosung, the legend known far and wide as the Fist King. And that's a title he grinded for, by the way, not some hand-me-down from the system. His name is a big deal all throughout Murim, whispered with a mix of total respect and absolute fear. Not many people even know his real name, you know, but they all know the pure devastation his fists can cause. Our MC Dan Wusung is already looking pretty beat up, surrounded by the bodies left over. From a brutal sneak attack, his gaze just sweeps across the battlefield like a radar, locking on to the remaining threats. Only 2 guys are still on their feet. One of them is a tall dude with long black hair, tied back, rocking this dark outfit that just screams bad vibes and murderous intent. The other guy's wearing a purplish-white robe, and he's casually fanning himself like he's on vacation. He's just chilling, exuding this super calculated calm. And our boy Dan Wusung is scanning them both. He knows these aren't just random ads. So, in a total power move, he just boots a dude who's still alive right back at his bosses, basically handing over their minion. The guy is screaming for help, but his pleas get cut short instantly as the long-haired dude draws his sword and just splits him, no hesitation at all. The sheer brutality was its own message, that, and the symbol on the sword's blade, left no room for doubt. These guys were 100% from the demonic faction, and our boy Wusung calls them out on it directly. The swordsman, who turns out to be the infamous Sword Demon, just smirks. He's actually impressed that the Fist King has lasted this long, admitting the title is totally deserved. Dan Wusung is not here for the compliments, though. Instead, he just deadpan announces that this whole boss fight is on a timer, 10 punches and it's over. The Sword Demon just laughs it off and blitzes forward. A sonic boom erupts as Dan Wusung raises a hand, crackling with lightning to meet the charge. It's like the sky itself is amping him up. They start trading blows one after another, with every single hit literally making the air tremble. But as his 9th punch connects, something feels off. His power didn't fully land on the critical spot, and his eyes get drawn way off into the distance where the dude with the fan is posted up on a cliff, surrounded by this glowing purple aura. His gaze is completely calm, like he's a puppet master pulling strings on the whole fight, from way back there. It's obvious some kind of debuff is holding Dan Wusung back, and the Sword Demon totally capitalizes on it. His blade gets launched with deadly speed, skewering our boy. Dan Wusung, as blood just gushes. From his mouth, the Sword Demon declares that the era of the Fist King is cooked, but Dan Wusung isn't going down, not yet, with the sword still sticking out of his chest. He forces his body to move, shattering whatever invisible chains were holding him, and unleashes one last monstrous punch. The attack only manages to graze the Sword Demon's face, leaving a cut on his cheek, but instead of getting mad, the Sword Demon just starts laughing, totally in awe of our boy Dan Wusung's skill. The dude with the fan just drops down from the cliffside, casually commenting on what a close call that fight was. But the Sword Demon snaps back with some major salt, blaming him for the distraction. Just as he was about to land one last verbal smackdown, our boy Wosung's fist connects again. That's the 10th and final strike. A fountain of blood erupts from the Sword Demon's mouth as his whole body just gives out, and Wosung himself is swaying on his feet. He's hit his absolute limit completely out of MP, but the contract is fulfilled. 10 punches delivered. A moment later, Wosung's own body finally gives in, and it looks like he breathes his last, right there in the hands of the demonic faction. Elsewhere at the Juhua Mountain safe house, lightning just rips across the sky as a geyser of electric blue energy explodes from the ground. A woman in a yellow robe inside a nearby building snaps her head up, her face a mask of pure anxiety. That tremor definitely didn't go unnoticed inside, where a young woman scrambles to a bedside as a man starts to wake up, calling out his name. She's in total panic mode, trying to get a read on his condition. Man's eyes flutter open, but his expression is pure confusion. He's scanning this room he's never seen before. His body is perfectly fine, not a scratch, while the woman hands him water and calls him First Young Master. You can practically see the question marks popping up over his head. The whole situation is just not computing, and that title sounds completely foreign. Then Dan Wusung catches a glimpse of himself in a mirror, and his face just freezes. He's so shook he does a full-on spit take, spewing the water right out of his mouth and onto the floor. His hands shoot up to his face, roughly feeling for any seams, anything to prove it's a fake. But there are no edges. This isn't some high-tech mask. That face in the mirror is actually his. The panic in the room goes nuclear, and the servant standing by just bolts out the door, promising she's gonna go find a doctor. Meanwhile, Dan Woo-sung is literally slapping himself, trying to force a reality check on this absolute madness. Outside the room, you can hear the servant muttering, her voice all shaky. She thinks the first young master is acting unbelievably strange today, while back inside our boy Wo-sung is doing a deep dive scan on his new body. There are no leftover wounds, no weird energy signatures, and zero trace of any illusion magic. A fact that actually puts him on higher alert, because if the demonic faction could pull off a stunt like this, they would have already speedrun the entire Jonghu ages ago. That much was obvious from how he was breaking it all down. He forces himself to his feet, but his steps are super wobbly. This body is completely nerfed. It has none of the OP stats he used to rock. His eyes land on a pile of documents on the table, all marked with the name Yunha Merchant Group. That name rings a faint bell, but it's not crystal clear. Not totally alien, though. It's a massive merchant guild near Juhua Mountain, famous enough that even martial arts disciples know of it. The letters inside are all for a guide. For a guy named Lee Jin-yeon, the family's firstborn son, and the contents are, well, a real grab bag. Everything from people asking for cash to gambling invites to some seriously thirsty letters from women. And the more he reads, the clearer the picture becomes. The original owner of this body was a total pushover who got taken for a ride by everyone. That realization solidifies when he remembers the servant calling him first young master. All the pieces of the puzzle start clicking for Woo-sung. He wasn't just healed or teleported to a new location. He straight up body snatched this Lee Jin-yeon kid, and before he can even start to process that bombshell, the door bursts open. It's Gong Sun-yoon, the family physician. The doc rushes in his face, etched with worry, asking how the first young master is doing, but Lee Jin-yeon just brushes him off. His attitude is completely flat and cold. Gong Sun-yoon insists, though, saying he prepared Lee Jin-yeon's favorite dish. But when the bowl is served, Lee Jin-yeon's whole demeanor shifts. His gaze becomes razor sharp. It's dragon phoenix soup, a dish that's a huge buff for a healthy person, but it's basically a poison debuff for a weak body. Like this one. Plus, he'd already noticed a sus move from the doc. That super subtle attempt the physician made to check his pulse earlier. The alarm bells are now blaring in his head. No words even needed. Our boy plays it cool, asking when the Dragon Phoenix martial competition started, and the doctor just casually replies, "Oh, you know, about 200 years ago." And right there, the math starts mathing in our MC's head. That timeline is way too close to his master's death, which can only mean one thing. The demonic faction is still online. They never disbanded, so our boy fakes being tired and shoos Gong Sun-yeon away, though the doc seems a bit sus. But he leaves anyway, and the second the door closes, our MC's entire aura shifts his eyes, turning to ice as he scans the room. This whole place is a snake pit, just full of fake smiles and hidden agendas. But this time around, he has zero intention of seeing the game over screen. A little later, in a different room, a low table is set with a breakfast that's simple, but looks like a 5-star meal. We're talking fragrant grilled meat skewers, a steaming bowl of fluffy white rice, and a cup of warm tea in a fancy porcelain cup, all arranged with almost ceremonial precision, while 2 maids stand nearby. One of them can't hold back her amazement, whispering that the first young master is finally eating a full meal again. And her friend nods hard, remembering that before now, our boy was basically stuck on a diet of watery porridge. Just then, our MC walks in, covered in a light sweat, his breathing steady but heavy, looking like someone who just finished grinding some serious XP. He eyes the table with a satisfied nod, praises the food, and gives an order. Keep the menu simple like this from now on, and the servants immediately bow in perfect sync. And as he slips into a fresh robe, more awestruck whispers bubble up from behind him. He looks so much healthier, like he's actually got some HP back. Then there's a soft knock on the door. A maid reports that Dr. Gong Sun-yoon has come to visit, and for a split second our boy's face hardens, before he gives a curt nod to let him in. Gong Sun-yoon waltzes in extra as ever, greeting him with a loud voice, and gestures so big he could be directing an airplane. Our MC just stares him down with a tight little smile, and a flat tone asking him straight up what he wants. Gong Sun-yoon tries to act all chill, saying he just got lonely because he hadn't heard any news and decided to pop in himself. He even brings up the change in our MC's face, as if all his efforts have gone to waste. Hearing that, our boy's eyebrow just quirks up, and he immediately brings up, that dragon phoenix soup he was given before, totally implying it was more than just a friendly gesture. And you can see Gong Sun-yoon's whole expression just crack as he rushes to say that the soup was just a simple stamina-boosting tonic. Nothing more, but our boy's tone is pure mockery, like he's calling the potion straight-up poison. Gong Sun-yoon goes rigid, introducing himself as the personal physician and saying with fake respect that he'll leave if his presence isn't wanted. But our MC's gaze sharpens and he shuts that down with ice in his voice. You came here without being called, and you're gonna leave without permission. Acting like you own the server, the tension in the room freezes solid, until our boy suddenly lets out a light laugh, completely changing the vibe. Gong Sun-yoon awkwardly laughs along, even though you can tell he's still totally freaked out. A moment later, our boy gives an order to bring him some writing materials. He's going to dictate a letter, and he wants Gong Sun-yoon to write it for him in a calm voice. Our MC starts laying out this message about being terribly sick and needing to stay at the villa. For a long time, the whole letter is just screaming with weird subtext and hidden traps. Gong Sun-yoon's hand stops dead, his face like stone, as he realizes something is majorly off, and our MC calls him out. In a cold voice asking why he stopped writing, the tension snaps tight as our boy suddenly whips a wooden chopstick. The thing flies past Gong Sun-yoon's face and sticks right into the wall. Just a few inches from his throat, our MC's tone flips completely as he makes it clear that the old him has been permanently deleted. Calm but sharp as a blade, he explains that sure, for a healthy person that dragon phoenix soup could be a buff. But for our boy's already nerfed body, that stuff is basically a one-shot poison, something this so-called healer Gong Sun-yoon should know like the back of his hand. Our MC even calls him out, pointing out how Gong Sun-yoon was all sneaky, checking his pulse on the down low, just to see if the poison debuff was sticking, and oh man, Gong Sun-yoon's whole poker face just implodes, his eyes going full-on predator mode, all sharp and calculating. Lee Jinian, though, our boy stays completely unbothered, just sitting there, but the sheer pressure he's radiating could crush a tin can, making the whole room feel claustrophobic. He straight up says Gong Sun-yoon couldn't be the raid leader on this one, demanding he spill the tea and write down the name of his shot caller. And Gong Sun-yoon, he tries to play dumb, looking away like, why me, trying to deflect the accusation, but his act falls apart instantly. His entire demeanor does a 180, his voice turning ice cold and dripping with menace. He basically threatens that, if it comes down to it, he'll just delete every single servant in the villa to cover his tracks, like they're just disposable NPCs. Then his hand darts behind his robes, going for a hidden weapon he had stashed away. Dude's reaction time was total garbage. Way too slow, because our boy Lee Jinian speedruns the counterattack, a single brutal strike to the head, and that's a wrap on the betrayal. Instantly, Gong Sun-yoon's body just crumples to the floor, silent as the grave. Lee Jinian just stands over the body, drops a warning to the others about letting their guard down, then casually strolls back to his table. But as he tries to eat, his face twists a bit, a clear sign that the pain debuff is still ticking away, gnawing at his insides. He throws a cold glance at Gong Sun-yoon's corpse, the thought hitting him hard. Getting his strength back is now priority number one. It's an emergency, and the mastermind pulling the strings, even if it means taking on the entire Yunha merchant group, is absolutely not getting away with this. No one escapes, period, and then a moment later, a crippling sharp pain just blitzes his skull. He clutches his head, a torrent of foreign memories just downloading straight into his consciousness. And just like that, the highlight reel of the original Lee Jinian's past starts playing out. Turns out the eldest son of the Yunha merchant group was, let's be real, kinda mid. Dude had no points in intelligence or strength, so he tried to cover up his trash stats by living it up, just partying his face off, which completely tanked his reputation, his health bar, and his social standing, and now it all makes sense why our boy got banished to this remote villa, basically left to rot and wait for a game over screen. But now, with his memories rebooted and all the XP from his past life, the path forward is crystal clear, isn't it? This body he's in, the one the original owner totally wasted, actually has some S-tier hidden potential, and with his meta-knowledge of martial arts and a few key items. Like some rare elixirs, a full-on comeback isn't just a fantasy, and then his eyes drift over to a pouch of coins nearby, confirming that, yeah, he's got the funds to jumpstart his new build. After that, he glances back at the corpse, realizing he's got one last piece of business to handle. Before he can truly move forward, and boom, we get a time skip, 1 year later at the Jihua Mountain safe house. Some young guy in a sharp uniform pulls up to the villa gate. He's clutching an official letter like it's a legendary drop. His walk is steady, but but his eyes are darting everywhere on high alert. He greets a servant saying that he's got a letter to deliver, a letter for the young master Lee Jinian, and naturally asks where he can find him. The servant, totally relaxed, just points over to the inner courtyard and says the person he's looking for is right over there. So this dude Mokin Seop, a member of the Unha merchant group's personal bodyguard squad, follows the servant's line of sight. And the moment he spots the figure in the distance, my man is absolutely shook, his breath catches. And any words he had just died in his throat, he just mutters in total disbelief because that figure really is Lee Jinian. It's been a few seasons, a decent chunk of time, and in that training arc, our boy Lee Jinian finally formed his energy core, basically downloading all the essential martial arts techniques straight into his system. He's got the starter pack down, kicking things off with the enlightened mobility art, the enlightened body art, and even rapid strike, all the crucial tier 1 techniques you need just to survive in this world. But wait, there's more. He's even started to spec into the lightning technique skill tree, which is just insane. Our boy's white lightning art just hit level 10, and he's already breezing through the 4th phase of the whole power-up. The XP gain is running smooth. He's just meditating in that classic lotus position. Lee Jinian is deep in his focus state, the energy flowing perfectly down the skill trees he's already unlocked. But hold on, even with all this progress, there's this quiet little thought creeping in that this current power level just ain't gonna cut it. And bam, his concentration is shattered by a dude named Mokin Seo, who's just shown up and is giving a super formal greeting. He says he's from the guard squad and is basically a delivery boy with a letter from the main clan. Our boy Jinian just gives a nod telling him to hand it over, but as Mokin Seo does, you can see his brain is totally short-circuiting. He just can't connect the absolute unit in front of him with the weak, fragile young master he used to know. I mean, seriously, Lee Jinian looks like a completely different character model now. There's not a single trace of his weak beta version past left. Jinian takes the letter, and his arm moves kinda slow, like he's feeling a little stiff. The letter is short, but the news hits like a truck. His father, the head of the Unha merchant group, suddenly collapsed and is now bedridden with zero explanation for what caused it. Now, leadership of the group is getting passed to him. He reads that part out loud, totally deadpan, just emphasizing his dad got sick. For no clear reason, Mokin Seo hesitates for a second before dropping a bombshell. He suspects the Ouyang clan is behind the whole thing. Apparently, this has been a problem for years. That clan has been hitting them up for protection fees, which is just a fancy way of saying tribute, and the amount has been getting completely insane. But our boy Jinian just reacts with ice in his veins, asking if the Unha merchant group ever did something to make the price go up. Mokin Seo immediately shoots that idea down. He's fuming as he explains how the Ouyang clan just ghosts them for any kind of talks, even when the little deity, Sect, tried to slap them with some ridiculous trade taxes. Their attitude never changed. They'd only talk to the main Unha clan, and even that was a total waste of time. Even the guard captain is too scared to talk back, especially to a big shot like Ouyang Hu, and our boy repeats the name. Lee Jinian says it like he's running a background check. He knows Ouyang Hu's reputation. This guy is a main quest level boss in the Jianghu that you absolutely cannot underestimate. So he puts 2 and 2 together, realizing a guy like that definitely sees a bunch of merchants as nothing more than low-level NPCs, and a tiny smirk appears on his face. As he figures out the simple solution, if you just delete the Ouyang clan from the server, this whole side quest just vanishes with them. Mokin Seop is totally shocked to hear our MC suggest a full-on clan wipe, but he quickly adds another super important detail. Right before collapsing, Jinian's dad saw a sword fight between the second and third sons. Yup Jinian's 2 younger brothers were throwing down right in front of him, and the pure rage is what they think caused his HP to just bottom out. Our MC is just silent, clearly shook. I mean, who starts a PvP match right in front of their own father? That's a level of disrespect that's tough to even compute. He takes a long deep breath, Monk. Seo tries to do some damage control, saying that Lee Jinian won't be held responsible, but our boy ain't having it. He makes it clear that sitting on the bench isn't an option. He gives back. The letter gets up and announces he's handling this solo. Back at the base, Mokin Seo tells the whole story to his squad mates. He keeps insisting that Lee Jinian had a full-on glow-up and is a real martial artist now. The response he gets is just a bunch of laughter and trash talk. Some guys say it's more likely Jinian leveled up his Riz game than his actual combat skills. But that laughter cuts off real quick. Han Yop, The vice captain is standing right behind one of them with a completely unreadable expression, and he's there to confirm that yes, Lee Jinyan has indeed been fully restored from his previous debuffs. So Hanyap's having this major flashback, thinking all the way back to their childhood. Turns out our boy Lee Jinyan wasn't always just some weak rich kid. He was actually pretty well built, and even tried to teach him some basic self-defense. So he's asking around like, yo, when is the main character coming back? But Mangacap just shrugs, totally clueless, saying he only knows Jinyan's on his way. And speak of the devil, right on cue, a loud shout erupts from outside the main gate. Master Lee Jinyan has arrived. The announcement hits like a server-wide broadcast, and Mangacap just mutters, well, I guess it's showtime, while Hanyap starts barking orders. He's trying to get everyone to line up for a formal welcome party, but you can already hear some guard in the back, whining, ugh, do we seriously have to bow to that guy? Hanyap shuts that nonsense down immediately. He basically tells him, hey, remember who signs your paychecks, so stop complaining and look busy. Meanwhile, on the outside, our boy Lee Jinyan is just absorbing the sheer scale of the Yunha Merchant Group headquarters, and the place is so huge and fancy, he's just frozen for a second. The reality laid out before him was way crazier than he remembered from his past life starter pack. Yeah, his old self wasn't just financially stable. He was a dude born with a platinum controller in his hands, surrounded by luxury and power from day one. And now he was walking back into the main residence. He gives his two followers permission to go chill, deciding he's going to face this next boss battle with his dad completely solo. They give him a deep, respectful bow and then just poof, they're gone. But as our MC ventures deeper into the lion's den, the vibe feels super weird. Like, why is everything so quiet? None of the usual welcome committee is there, but that eerie silence doesn't last long. A whole squad of guards suddenly materializes out of thin air, all lined up perfectly. Then they all snap into a bow at the same time. Their welcome home greetings echoing everywhere as Hanyap steps forward to introduce himself. He's the vice captain of the guard squad, and you can see this huge wave of relief on his face, seeing Lee Jinyan standing there looking strong and healthy. But in the background, you can hear the NPCs whispering. Some of them are just confused, others are straight up throwing shade. They just can't believe Hanyap is acting so humble, especially to the guy who used to treat him like a low-level mob. But Lee Jinyan hits them with a plot twist, flashing a huge smile. He returns the greeting in this super friendly tone, even thanking them. He gives his thanks to the entire guard squad. That response just leaves the guards totally shook. Whispers start spreading like wildfire, as they're all stunned by his attitude. This version of Jinyan felt like a completely different character, nothing like the dude they knew before, and even the most cynical guards started to feel that something had changed. The person standing before them wasn't radiating that toxic energy anymore. Instead, he had this unexplainable, tranquil aura. Hanyap's expression softens, and he starts to personally escort Lee Jinyan towards the chambers of the Yunha Merchant Group's leader. He also gives him a heads up that his dad has already been notified of his arrival. Lee Jinyan just gives a nod and says thanks. But their little walk gets interrupted by the sound of someone talking trash. It's Lee Jae-in, the third son, who shows up with this incredibly punchable, condescending smirk, looking his older brother up and down. He can clearly see something's different, but his brain can't compute it, so a hand comes crashing down on our boy's shoulder. It was a rough shove from Lee Jinyan, and it came with a nasty sneer. Hanyap instantly freezes up, having a traumatic flashback to all the times Jaeon used to just relentlessly beat on his older brother. The dude was merciless, so he quickly tries to pull Jaeon's hand away, attempting to de-escalate the situation with some diplomacy. But that attempt just triggers Jaeon's rage meter. He violently slaps Hanyap's hand away, furious for being touched, without permission, and the situation is about to explode. Then just as it's about to pop off, Lee Jinyan calls his little brother's name in a dead calm voice, and he raises his hand. He touches Jaeon's face with this weirdly gentle move that makes everyone stop. But the confusion only lasts for a split second before a clean punch lands perfectly. It connects right on Jaeon's face. Blood goes flying, and his body stumbles back before crashing onto the floor. Hanyap is completely stunned. Jaeon is just sitting there on the ground with a blank stare, his brain still buffering. What the hell just happened? Lee Jinyan is still standing there, perfectly calm, a tiny smile playing on his lips as he grabs his little brother's shoulder and squeezes with some serious force. Then he drops a verbal Uno reverse card, reminding him about their positions as the older and younger brother, and all this noise spills over into the main hall, where some guy carrying a bunch of documents stops and focuses his eyes. right towards the commotion, and this dude is Huayan, the second son of the Yunha merchant group, who's also a supervisor of some kind. Right now, our boy is rolling up on Jaeon, demanding to know what the hell is going on. After getting the quick rundown, his face just goes dark, and with a seriously ticked-off vibe, he starts ripping into the guards. He called them out for just standing there, like useless NPCs, before he speedruns over to their dad's room. But right at the door, Lee Jinyan hits his brother Jaeon with an ice-cold shutdown, telling him to keep it down, since they're literally right outside their dad's chambers. The second our boy Huayan steps inside, Lee Jinyan's gaze just locks onto him like a heat-seeking missile. He says Huayan's name, and the tone is all business. Our boy is shook of the whole aura in the room is just different now that all three brothers are finally together. And get this, Huayan is just casually sitting and sipping tea, while Jaeon is on his knees, hands in the air, taking a massive L with a classic punishment pose. Lee Jinyan is standing over them, and they have a quick little chat about our MC's health and his surprise comeback tour. But then his eyes laser focus on a cut on Huayan's hand, and he asks where it came from, but before Huayan can even answer, crack a nasty slap echoes through the room as Lee Jinyan's hand connects with Jaeon's face. Lee Jinyan lays down the law, warning him that drawing a sword on your own flesh and blood is just not something they're going to tolerate around here. Jaeon is totally rattled, stammering out a confession like his life depends on it. He's just nodding like a bobblehead, absolutely terrified, and you can tell from his face, even with his head down, he's in total shock that the guy he used to walk all over is now playing in a completely different league. Huayan is just as surprised, flashing back to the days when Lee Jinyan himself was the one getting beatdowns. But now, the tables have completely turned, so Huayan has to ask what actually went down at the safe house. But Lee Jinyan's response, just a little smirk and some brief praise as if this whole massive power-up was no big deal. Then his attention just snaps over to a stack of scrolls on the table. He gestures at the documents and asks what they are. Huayan explains they're the list of people they're bringing to the big conference tomorrow. Lee Jinyan immediately starts scanning through the names. The list has everyone from the guard's vice captain all the way down to the guys at the front gate, and his eyes just narrow. He asks who exactly recommended everyone on this list. His voice turns sharp, practically a weapon, as he issues a warning. He's basically saying, if anyone has been dealing with the Ouyang clan, now is the time to confess. Huayan immediately denies it. He says that possibility is just plain ridiculous, and even Jaeon chimes in all fired up. He claims he'd rather die than let some rival clan get their grubby hands on the family business. Huayan nods hard in agreement, adding that the Yunha merchant group is the result of their father's own hard work, and with that the tension in the room kind of pops like a balloon. Lee Jinyan stands up from his seat and drops another question. Are all the top execs, every single big shot, going to be at this conference? Once he gets confirmation, he announces that he'll be there too. And that's it, no further explanation. He just leaves the room with Huayan calling after him, asking where he's off to. But all Lee Jinyan says is that he's going to see their father, leaving our boy just staring at the closed door, totally confused. You can practically see the question marks over his head, while on the other side of the room, Lee Jaeon is just fuming, mauling over his bad decisions. The guy is regretting everything. And meanwhile, outside the Yunha merchant group leader's room, a servant announces the arrival of the eldest son. Permission to enter is granted instantly. Lee Jinyan steps inside to find his father looking incredibly frail, just lying in bed. Lee Seongmin greets him, his voice super soft, and asks about all the commotion he heard happening outside. Our boy Lee Jinyan just waves it off like it's no big deal. But then he drops the real reason for the drama. His dad's health is totally in the red from all this endless pressure. Lee Seongmin just lets out this heavy sigh, admitting his own stats are nerfed, and he can't carry the load like he used to, his hands slowly rising to his tired face. And as he looks at Jinyan, the change is just insane. His kid's whole vibe is different. We're talking a complete character respec, new attitude, new expression, even his aura got a legendary buff. Our MC just gives a sharp nod, that's all the answer needed. He grabs his father's hand and makes a promise that sounds like it's forged in steel. He basically says that whole pressure problem is about to get deleted, telling his dad to just take a long rest and not sweat it. Lee Seongmin looks kinda shook for a second, confused by our boy's OP choice of words, but Jinyan just covers it with a slick little smile, a super calm grin that just completely diffuses the whole situation. So, the next day rolls around and it's time for the Yunha Merchant Group conference. All the VIPs are gathered, including this dude, Yang Hu. He's the captain of the guard squad and a master fighter from the Yang clan. Then, one of his minions whispers to him, asking why in the world Li Jinian even bothered showing up. Yang Hu just smirks back, thinking our MC is just shaking in his boots over his position. What a clown. Anyway, the meeting keeps going until Huiyan finally opens the floor for opinions. And boom, Yang Hu immediately cuts in. He starts running his mouth about how Li Jinian still doesn't have his own personal bodyguard, and surprise, surprise, he just happens to have a recommendation. You can hear murmurs ripple through the room. A few people are finally getting it. The Yang clan's influence is like a virus that's spread way too far. And just as someone is about to talk back, their teacup gets accidentally knocked over. Yang Hu just chuckles, pretending to be sorry, and then he straight up dares anyone to go against his idea. The room goes dead silent. But right then, our boy Jinian stands up. He announces his objection and starts walking to the front. Grabbing everyone's attention, then with a voice full of conviction, he drops a counter-proposal firing Yang Hu from his job as the guard captain. The whole place just explodes. The Unha members are absolutely floored, while the Yang clan's crew just bursts out laughing like it's a huge joke. Yang Hu laughs along too completely, underestimating Jinian's power, saying he's forgotten the rules after being sick for so long. Jinian's expression turns to ice. He smashes the floor with a single punch, and this massive power wave silences the entire room. His voice now sounds absolutely frigid as he lays down a reminder that just because you have influence doesn't mean you can just ignore the boundaries. Then, with a razor-sharp tone, he states one thing that nobody can argue with. The Yunha merchant group is in his hands, period. Before the meeting continues, Huiyan gives Jinian a worried glance, probably wondering what his real plan is, knowing that trying to fight a final boss like Yang Hu is no easy side quest for a bunch of merchants. But our boy returns that look with pure confidence, showing everyone that this move wasn't just some random bluff, but a perfectly calculated galaxy brain play. Jinian looks Huiyan dead in the eye, totally serious, and begins to explain exactly what happens when you underestimate a real martial artist from the Jianghu. He says the clueless ones get devoured completely, and the state of the Unha merchant group is proof it's being eaten away from the inside. Huiyan is just silent, finally realizing how deep the Ouyang clan's roots have grown into their group. Then, Jinian pats his little brother's shoulder, giving him a chill little smile and saying that this whole affair is something he'll handle himself as the big bro. Meanwhile, Han Yap standing nearby looks super unsure, and before he can say anything, some goon from the Ouyang clan rushes forward. Pulling his sword, he starts screaming, accusing Li Jinian of going totally insane. Yang Hu lets out a low hiss, basically calling Jinian a troublemaker who's finally lost all his marbles. Han Yap quickly steps up, scolding the guy for being so out of line and telling that NPC to stand down. I mean, pulling a weapon on the air is a major foul. It's a huge violation. Jinian's face hardens, and he agrees. That yeah, the dude's actions are pretty shameless, his voice just dripping with contempt. He calls these guys clowns, who are just asking to be sent to the respawn screen, then he starts walking straight toward Dassault's Yang Hu and says that the only reason he's feeling any pity is what's making him even consider offering some kind of compensation deal. Yang Hu just sneers at him, but you can tell he's shook. Our boy, Li Jin Aeon, keeps talking, his voice super chill, which is somehow even more terrifying, basically laying out how Yang Hu's grand retirement scheme is completely cooked, even sending an assassin named Gongsun Myun to try and zero him out, all while he was still nerfed and recovering. The whole play was to spark a civil war between our MC and Hua Aeon, knowing some family bloodshed would be a great distraction. Because fighting brother, was the ultimate cheese strat for a hostile takeover. Even their own father, Li Xiongmin's downfall, was a calculated part of this whole mess. I mean, if you can successfully manipulate just one of the brothers, the entire Unha merchant group would just roll over without a fight. Hearing this, Yang Hu just bursts out laughing totally, calling him delusional, just straight up capping, he says. But Jin Aeon, cool as a cucumber, just casually rests a hand on Yang Hu's shoulder. And then he drops the bombshell that Gongsun Yoon, you know, the guy who was supposed to be his executioner, yeah, he got absolutely deleted by our MC instead. Instantly, the smile drops right off. Yang Hu's face and Jin Aeon, what a total Chad, just turns away like he's bored with the conversation, adding that it was a clean one-shot kill, no diff. He then twists the knife, saying the O-Yang clan's whole takeover attempt was honestly pretty mid for a guild as massive as Yunha, and also a massive lawsuit for all the damages is coming their way. That's the final straw. O-Yang Hu absolutely snaps, lunging forward in a flash, as their auras just collide, creating a massive shockwave. A crazy gust of wind just blasts through the entire hall. People are screaming, totally shook, as sparks of energy fly everywhere, zapping all over the place. But our boy Jin Aeon just parries the first attack with perfect timing. He takes a tiny step back and does this over-the-top wince, completely faking that it hurt him, then breaks into this massive grin. See? He baited the first attack, which makes this an official legal duel now, and O-Yang Hu just curses, realizing he totally fell for the trap. He calls Jin Aeon an arrogant punk, like a fresh spawn who thinks he can solo the raid boss after clearing the tutorial, and then he makes it official, declaring a formal duel right there in front of his clan's guards and everyone watching. Our boy Jin Aeon gets into his fighting stance, and you can feel the tension in the room. Just spike, cause this just became a duel to the death. Oh, Yang Hu draws his sword, giving our MC a little credit for his skills, but saying that raw experience, the sheer number of hours logged, is the ultimate game changer. And then he charges. Jin Aeon just sidesteps it effortlessly, throwing some shade that Yang Hu is talking a big game for someone who can't even land a hit. A crackling aura of pure lightning suddenly wraps around his body as he launches his own counterattack, and Yang Hu gets sent flying backwards, completely shook by the raw power. With a steady step, Jin Aeon presses forward, ready to explain what a real stat difference looks like. The kind of OP buff formed by using the enlightened mobility art. And he unleashes this relentless combo. Yang Hu is barely managing to block, and you can see the sheer panic in his eyes as he realizes this isn't some rookie he's fighting, but a legit experienced martial master. This dude's a high-level player for sure. Yang Hu desperately pops his ultimate, the three-form sword art, and rushes in again, but Jin Aeon just speed blitzes him with rapid strike, closing the distance in the blink of an eye. A single perfect punch connects right on Yang Hu's chin, sending him blasting straight through the freaking roof of the hall. Dust rains down as a dead silence falls over the room, so spooky quiet, and cut to Lee Seong-min's room, where a nervous servant is peeking out, wondering what all the noise was. Lee Seong-min just calmly replies that his son has been, learning a few martial arts in the subordinates' hall. Talk about the understatement of the century. Back in the hall, the O-Yang clan members are scrambling over to their leader, who's just lying there completely wrecked. One of them actually gets on his knees and admits the duel was totally fair. He even warns his clan that if they keep demanding revenge through duels, the Yunha merchant group is just going to be dragged into an endless PvP war. But that's when our MC's voice cuts through the tension. He declares that he never expected to be free from their grudge anyway. Kindness gets repaid with kindness. But hatred, well, that gets returned with a whole lot of interest. He makes it crystal clear that he'll take on all the consequences himself, without ever getting the Yunha merchant group involved. His brother Hwayon immediately freaks out, yelling that it's a super reckless decision. But Jin Aeon stands firm. He says, the Yunha merchant group belongs to him and his father, sure, but it also belongs to the guards who greeted him so warmly. And it belongs to the servants who smiled just from watching him eat breakfast that morning. These people are not going to be pawns for scum like the O-Yang clan, and with that he fires every single person who was involved in the conspiracy. Boom. The whole hall was rumbling with the servants' hushed cheers. You could just see the pure pride plastered all over their faces. Meanwhile, the O-Yang clan's lackeys were just slinking away, absolutely fuming on the inside. As the crowd noise died down, one of them could be heard muttering some salty nonsense, sarcastically, wishing our boy Lee Jin-eon luck, ignoring the haters. Lee Jin-eon just gestured for Hwayon to come to his. Our boy tells Hwayon to get an elixir ready for him pronto, and he makes it clear he's covering the entire bill. He'll take full responsibility, at least with that buff secured. Hwayon was totally hyped, immediately accepting the quest and promising to brew up the best, most OP tonic possible. He also gave our MC a heads up that his schedule was about to get slammed with all sorts of business, everything from ordering more elixirs to recruiting a new security detail. But Jin Aeon shot back that he already had some candidates picked out for his new squad. This all takes us back a few days. Back to our boy's very first day at the Yunha Merchant Group. Lee Jin-aon was striding into the Grand Hall, flanked by Vice Captain Han Yop. And along the corridor, they passed a whole crew of Ouyang clan members just loafing around like they were AFK in real life. Jin Yeon's expression immediately hardened into granite. The disgust was obvious. He then turned to Han Yop and asked, "Hey, have you eaten yet?" Han Yong replied that he hadn't had a chance since he'd been grinding quests since the crack of dawn. Our boy Jin Yeon let out a slow breath, seeing the contrast between the guys actually putting in the work and the others who were just wasting server space. It was a crystal clear picture. Some people were actually doing their jobs, working hard for the guild, while others were just leeching XP, and it became super obvious the Ouyang clan was the reason these lazy bums were still around. The frustration got so real that our MC literally crushed a nearby railing in his hand. He straight up said that people like that needed to be kicked from the party, but just as quickly his chill returned. He clarified that the main quest wasn't just about figuring out who to boot, but rather it was about finding players who were actually competent enough to fill their empty slots. His gaze sharpened like he'd just found the walkthrough, and later that night, Jin Yong arrived at a gambling den that was lit up like a Christmas tree. The whole building was vibrating with gross laughter, drunk shouting, and flirty nonsense, and the second he walked in, a guard at the door clocked him. With a super punchable grin, the guard greeted Jin Yeon, joking that the stupid ATM was back to donate more of his cash, but Jin Yeon just stared him down with ice in his veins, warning him not to even think about touching him, unless he wanted to get smeared with his own pig grease. His voice was completely flat as he ordered the guy to open the door. The guard looked shook and tried to argue, but our boy didn't even acknowledge him, just bulldozed his way inside the main room, where three dudes turned their heads at once. In the middle of it all stood Kul Myung-ho, the poisonous fox, whose face looked like a roadmap of bad decisions. He let out a huge grin and welcomed him, saying Jin Yeon looked way better, like the recovery time had given him a major buff. The other two guys also said hey. Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo chimed in that it had been a while, but then the poisonous fox immediately started roasting them for not even bothering to visit Jin Aeon while he was healing up. Yuk Myungbo quickly started apologizing, swearing he had no idea what had happened. Myung-ho just waved it off, saying whatever, he was just getting bored, not having his favorite piggy bank around to shake down. With way too much drama, he offered to throw a special party to celebrate Jin Aeon's grand return to the Yunha Merchant Group. But our boy just stood there in total silence, which made Myung-ho's tone flip to straight-up mockery, questioning why he was getting the cold shoulder. Jin Xian finally broke his silence, his voice low and perfectly under control. He said he was just busy considering one very important question, which was whether our boy makes it clear Myung-ho can keep breathing for now, declaring that a has-been like him is completely worthless in his eyes now. The real prize here is the twins. Their skill set is just way too OP to be wasted taking orders from. Myung-ho, and he drops this bomb right to his face. Myung-ho is getting visibly shook. He's literally asking if our MC is even listening, but Jin Yeon just hits him with this tiny smirk and asks for the key to the safe. Myung-ho is totally floored. He repeats the question in disbelief, like, is Jin Yeon seriously trying to invoice him right now? And our boy gives a firm nod, no hesitation at all. Then he starts breaking down the itemized bill. He lists everything from the thousands of Nyang he was forced to dump into the gambling den, the bogus interest from the extortion racket, to the medical fees from that beatdown he took, and the grand total, according to his math, comes out to a whopping 100,000 Nyang. Myung-ho just loses it, starts laughing his head off, and clowns on Jin Yeon, saying his recovery must have taught him how to count too, getting up from his chair with a nasty smirk. He boasts that the safe is loaded with way more. We're talking gold, silver, jewels, the whole 9 yards, but he makes it crystal clear that not a single piece belongs to Jin Yeon. He gets right in his face, saying if our boy was broke, he should have just begged for it, because there's no way he's handing over the safe key to some dude who's supposed to still be a helpless invalid. Jin Yeon gives him the silent treatment, which just sets Myung-ho off. His tone gets nasty. He starts yelling insults, then orders his goons to grab. Jin Yeon, one of the twins, makes the first move, but our MC has insane reaction speed. He snatches the dude's wrist in a flash, twists it like a bottle cap, and just yeets him across the entire room. The other twin rushes in for the follow-up, but Jin Yeon just dips, dodging the attack and countering with a brutal kick that absolutely obliterates the guy's ankle, and our boy just pauses for a second. But get this, even with those massive injuries, both twins start getting back on their feet, not a shred of fear in their eyes. That's the moment it clicks for our MC. This is exactly the kind of grit he was scouting for. He even gives them props for their skills, but they charge him again, and in a literal blink, our boy Lee Jin-yeon speedruns right between them, grabbing both of their heads at the same time, and just claps them together like a pair of cymbals until you hear a sickening crack. He lets them go and warns them with an ice-cold tone not to get up again, his focus snapping back to Myung-ho, who's just frozen solid, pale as a ghost and shaking like a leaf. Lee Jin-yeon's voice drops to a low growl, his eyes are pure ice, and suddenly it's a 1v1 boss fight. Myung-ho is cooked. He's stumbling backwards in total panic, his hand scrambling behind his back for a hidden dagger. With a shaky voice, he tries to throw some shade, whining that Lee Jin-yeon should have at least given him a heads up, that he was grinding martial arts XP during his recovery, not just learning basic math. Our boy just gives him a slight head tilt. His reply is super chill but dripping with condescension, mentioning that Myung-ho is usually sharp, but this time, he's being real slow on the uptake. The panic is escalating in Myung-ho. He clutches the dagger and screams. For Jin-yeon to back off, he tries to de-escalate the situation, suggesting they talk it out, but the fear is taking over. He's clinging to that old belief that Jin-yeon was always a pushover, even though that theory is completely shattered. So in a last-ditch effort, Myung-ho lunges forward, screaming that the first hit decides it all. But Jin-yeon's speed is on another level. He kicks a whole table into the air to parry the attack. His fist punches straight through the wood, and his hand grabs Myung-ho by the head. And with this chilling smile, he corrects him, "Nah, the counterattack is what wins the fight," before landing a lightning-fast haymaker right on the dude's skull. A blood-curdling scream rips through the building. The guard who was mumbling earlier is probably thinking, "Yep, somebody's definitely getting zeroed tonight." Our boy lets Myung-ho's body drop to the floor and tells him to snap out of it, and Myung-ho, gasping for air, just lets out this bitter laugh, admitting he's still conscious. So he hits our boy Jin-yeon with the "what else do you want" question. But you can just see the storm clouds gathering on his face, his mind spiraling with theories. Like, what kind of secret training arc was Jin-yeon on during his recovery? And that sheer panic makes him jump up to offer a plan B. He starts pleading, offering a different path, saying literally anything is on the table except the vault key. He even tries to weaponize their past, bringing up their childhood connection to hit our MC with a guilt trip. Lee Jin-yeon just pauses for a beat, letting the desperation hang, and then he nods, actually admitting they were friends once, which immediately makes Chul Myung-ho's face light up, with this super-forced fake warmth all over it. He gets closer, calling it the right move, and pulls Jin-yeon into this awkward hug, promising he'll never hit or bully him again. But the disgust on our MC's face is so obvious as he tells him to get off, saying the whole act is just making him sick, but dude is still smiling. Chul Myung-ho just keeps the cringe performance going. He claims they're real friends now, not just brothers, then yells for Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo, telling them to greet their new big bro, and Yuk Jinbo reluctantly congratulates him, followed by a super short mumble from Yuk Myungbo. And for a second, Chul Myung-ho's fake smile almost breaks, but he holds it together. Our boy Jin-yeon then turns to the twins, asking if they're actually cool with all this. He lays it out for them, saying calling someone a sworn brother is basically a lifetime contract. That question makes them hesitate, and they shoot a look at Chul Myung-ho, who's still trying to keep his act together. Chul Myung-ho snaps at them to stop staring, and just confirms that, yeah, they're all brothers now. Apparently that was enough, because the twins both declare they'll serve Jin-yeon from now on, as their older brother, no questions asked. Chul Myung-ho tries to bring the hype back, cheering like he just won something. But that's when our MC's whole vibe shifts his tone, turning dangerously calm as he points out, well, if they're gonna be brothers, then they need to decide who the real alpha the eldest brother is, and he tells the twins to step outside. This discussion is gonna be private, and they'll get the results later, which makes Chul Myung-ho's face go ghost white. He stammers, trying to stall, but Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo are loyal minions, and just leave the room. Now, it's just our boy and Chul Myung-ho one-on-one. Jin-yeon's stare is absolutely crushing him, asking why he's still hesitating, and telling him to make up his mind already, his voice dripping with disappointment, pointing out that using loyal dudes like the twins is just a trash way to live. He declares that from now on he's gonna raise them right, and he gives this smile that's bright but absolutely terrifying. Chul Myung-ho is finally cooked, his spirit totally broken, and he just says with this defeated voice that Jin-yeon should just take the money he knows he's lost. Losing the twins feels like a death sentence, and his voice cracks as he begs. Wanting to speedrun this whole thing, Lee Jin-eon just squints and agrees to the deal without even a moment's thought. He immediately sends a kick straight to Chul Myung-ho's jaw, launching him backwards, and then drops some ice-cold trash talk about his buddy doing all the work. Hard before our MC just unloads a whole brutal combo string on the guy. Chul Myung-ho is completely staggered, his mind totally scrambled, and his consciousness is just fading to black. Man's basically cooked, but using the last ounce of his strength, he raises a shaky hand and chokes out that he's tapping out. So Chul Myung-ho finally spills it, saying he'll cough up the key while our boy approaches with a total poker face. He then asks if that's really the tone someone should use when they're begging for their life, his voice low and cold, speaking through gritted teeth. But Chul Myung-ho even now tries to be a smartass, asking if he's supposed to be all polite. Now that they're supposedly friends, and Jin Yeon's response is simple, he just grabs him and yeets Chul Myung-ho's body clear across the room. Chul Myung-ho curses under his breath, absolutely disgusted that Lee Jin-yeon acting all chill in a situation like this. Yuk Jin-bo and Yuk Myung-bo immediately rush over to ask him if he actually lost. The shame was practically a forest fire in his chest as he croaked out a yes. Chul Myung-ho then orders them to start following our boy, Lee Jin-yeon, from now on. He's their new big brother, and the guy was on the verge of tears, just trying to get the words out. Yuk, Jin-bo bows his head respectfully, a silent acknowledgement. Deep down, Chul Myung-ho knew the twins were about to get a massive XP boost with the Eunha merchant group, a way better path than rotting in this dead-end gambling den. One of them quietly accepts it, while the other thanks him for everything he's done, which makes Chul Myung-ho snap his head up, looking at them with blinking eyes like he was lagging, before grumbling that they were ungrateful little punks. A few moments later, he's limping out of the building, cursing up a storm. He's complaining that the old-timers were right. He never should have picked up some random black-haired kids from a gambling hall, and the whispers followed him like a debuff. That's Chul Myung-ho looking like he's on 1 HP. Where'd those two giant tanks who always followed him go? If they're gone, maybe now's our chance to gank him. With the twins no longer by his side, the gamblers started swarming him like a pack of hyenas. Chul Myung-ho just sneers, calling them rats who finally dared to peek out of their holes. He raises his voice, giving them a reminder of who he is. The poisonous fox. He dared them to step up if they had any guts. Someone screams back that he's just a walking corpse, getting the crowd all riled up and ready to kill him. You could see weapons being drawn. Chul Myung-ho braces himself, muttering bitterly that this is probably his game over screen. He curses Lee Jin-yeon one last time, feeling like the kid. Didn't have to nerf him that hard, but before the mob could even attack, Lee Jin-eon steps back in with a full-on wrecking ball combo. He clears the room in seconds, his gaze absolutely lethal as he roasts the gamblers. He calls them out, saying that none of them had the guts to even look Chul Myung-ho in the eye before. But now, they're all brave in a group. Just because they see he's weakened, he tells them to try again when Chul Myung-ho isn't half dead, if they have any shred of dignity left. Instead of a thank you, Chul Myung-ho just gripes that Lee Jin-yeon is trying way too hard to be the cool hero. He hobbles away, complaining that the world's gone completely nuts, as Lee Jin-yeon leaves with Yuk Jin-bo and Yuk Myung-bo following him. One of them thanks him. The other one chimes in too, but Lee Jin-yeon doesn't answer right away. He just stares forward, saying quietly that anyone who'd been to that place must have wondered why the twins followed a guy like Chul Myung-ho. Some thought they were basically slaves, while others figured they were just terrified. Heck, even Lee Jin-yeon used to think that way. But now he finally understood the truth. They weren't slaves, and they sure as hell weren't cowards. A faint smile appears on his face. As he says that, even in his second life, understanding the human heart is still the hardest quest. In the distance, someone is watching, and the man's eyes go wide with shock, whispering that it's really him, Lee Jin-yeon. Several days have gone by since our boy made his comeback to the Eunha merchant group, and Lee Jae-in is on the verge of a mental breakdown. There hasn't been a single chill day since that dude logged back into his life. Just the other day, Lee Jin-yeon waltzed in with an insane amount of cash, and soon after he dragged two massive dudes into the compound as if, bro, these guys are totally wandering around like lost puppies. And you've got Elijah Ion in the corner, just absolutely mauling about how much he hates this whole situation. He's still deep in his complaining monologue when something cuts him off. Mid-sentence, a massive carriage just rolled into the yard. Talk about a scene stealer. Hua Ion is playing it cool, telling the movers to be extra careful, stressing that the cargo is some next-level precious stuff. And that little detail was all it took for Lee Jae-yeon to start sprinting over for a closer look. He gets a look inside and his jaw hits the floor. It's the 100-year tuber fleece flower, a drop so rare people would grind all night just for a chance at it. His voice is practically shaking as he asks if that's legit the real plant, but before Hwaeon gets a word out, a calm yet super commanding voice just slices through the chatter. It's Lee Seong-min and he's like, "Yup, that was me." Lee Jae-yeon is stuttering, trying to say dad, while Hwaeon spins around instantly in panic mode, saying it's way too soon for Lee Seong-min to be out of bed. The old man just waves it off, though, insisting he's way better now. But you can see Lee Jae-yeon's brain going into overdrive. He's wondering what the endgame is here, cause our MC only asked for 1 elixir. If dad bought this whole loot crate, then the math is simple. Lee Jae-yeon's face totally lights up. He's convinced there's one with his name on it. He shoots this hopeful look at his dad, and that hope gets absolutely speedrun into the ground. Lee Seong-min declares that every last one of those elixirs is for our boy Lee Jin-ayon, and Lee Jae-yeon is just totally cooked. His dad calmly explains that 1 elixir is just a drop in the ocean. It's not enough to change the family's RNG. And honestly, compared to all the money they've already flushed down the toilet on the Ouyang clan and the little deity sect, this is chump change. He's already sent out a mass email basically to every branch leader, old ally, and big shot merchant on their friends list. He laid it all out, saying they're in a code red situation, because if the merchant group goes belly up, it's not just them. Everyone's portfolio is going to tank. He knows that'll make them take this seriously. Then, Lee Seong-min just owns it completely, declaring that making Oh Yang-hoo the guard captain was 100% his call to make, and because of that, it's only right that he's the one to face the music for it. Han Yop just nods, calling it a total Giga Chad move, fully confident. Our MC is going to grow into a top-tier martial artist. And Hwaeon jumps on the hype train, agreeing that Lee Jin-yeon's talent is already seriously OP. And Lee Seong-min is just soaking it in, thanking them both for having his back. He says that their help, and more importantly, their trust in him, means absolutely everything. Hanyopi basically swears an oath to give it his all, while over in the corner, Lee Jae-yeon is still rocking the world's sourest expression. Lee Seong-min cuts him off right there, calling this the perfect moment. What's a better time to push all the chips to the center of the table, to use every penny of wealth he's ever scraped together? And that just triggers full panic mode for Lee Jae-yeon. He's like, wait, what about me? And immediately starts asking where his elixir is. Lee Seong-min just does this slow turn, looks him dead in the eye, and asks, do you really need one for the training grounds? So, Lee Jae-yeon copes by just grinding non-stop, channeling all his frustration into training. But everywhere he goes, it's just Lee Jin-ayon. This Lee Jin-ayon that. And he's feeling totally He's just gripping his wooden practice sword, cursing the universe for the insane luck his brother stumbled into, when these heavy footsteps echo from nearby. Our boy is just casually jogging past him with a massive boulder strapped to his back like it's a backpack. Lee Jae-yeon jumps back instinctively, yelling at him, asking what the hell he's doing, and our boy just casually says he's out for a stroll, to which Jae-yeon scoffs, a stroll really, while carrying a mountain on your back. Then this dude just flops onto the ground and starts trying to shadowbox the fight he saw between our MC and Oh Yang-hoo. But his moves are all clumsy, like he's trying to reverse engineer the whole scene, imagining Oh Yang-hoo's slash, and then how our boy somehow broke through his guard and just clocked him in the jaw. No matter how many times he replays it in his head, it just doesn't add up. The whole scene feels like a glitch in the Matrix, and that's when a voice just cuts in. Turns out our MC has already come back and is standing right there behind him. And he asks, so who exactly were you just calling a bastard? Lee Jae-yeon jumps totally startled and nervous, claiming he was just talking to himself. But our MC just schools him, saying, if you're gonna analyze my move, he hands back the wooden sword, and got to admit, for a copy of Oh Yang-hoo's sword form, Lee Jae-yeon's attempt was pretty solid. Lee Jae-yeon doesn't say a word. He just follows the instructions to the letter and runs the move back. But our boy Jin-yeon adds that Oh Yang-hoo's original thrust was actually kinda sloppy. Oof, that comment definitely hit a nerve, and Elijah Ion immediately gets defensive. He starts complaining that Jin-yeon's tongue is way too sharp, but before he can even finish his sentence, Jin-yeon is already lunging at him. Liza, Ion is totally shook, barely managing to block the lightning-fast attack. Jin-yeon explains that the moment you break their guard, you gotta close the gap in a flash. He's already teleported behind Liza Ion, and the follow-up kick is coming in hot, looking like a guaranteed hit, but Lee Jae-yeon manages to pull off a clutch dodge. Jin-yeon keeps spitting facts, saying that when you've got an opponent cornered, That's when their last-ditch effort comes out, and as Lee Jae-yeon spins around, Jin-yeon's fist is already there, stopping, just a hair's breadth from his chin. Lee Jae-yeon is literally shaking, as Lee Jin-yeon explains that a thrust is way harder to aim than a slash. That sword art Oh Young-hoo uses is basically a one-shot kill build designed to end the fight instantly. If you're fast enough to exploit that tiny opening, the match is already decided, he says, admitting that his own body is nowhere near its peak condition. So there's no reason to get complacent with so many bosses he still can't defeat. At his current power level, this is still mid. He needs to grind way more XP, but just then a servant pops in to tell him he's got a visitor. Our boy Jin-yeon just nods and says he'll be right there, but not before giving Lee Jae-yeon a quick flick on the forehead. Lee Jae-yeon yelps in pain and starts protesting immediately. Jin-yeon just grins, saying it's because Lee Jae-yeon's such a punk. Meanwhile, in a different spot, a group of guys are in a heated argument. It's getting intense, with one of them calling the news total BS, saying there's no way Lee Jin-yeon could have mastered martial arts. Isn't that dude famous only for chasing girls? But Goong swears it's real, claiming he saw it with his own 2 eyes one night while he was wasted walking past Chul Myung-ho's gambling den. He heard Lee Jin-yeon's voice, but by the time he looked poof, the guy was gone. The others are still sus though, which is why they showed up. To see for themselves, they just barge into Lee Jin-yeon's room without even knocking, and the scene inside makes them just freeze on the spot. Lee Jin-yeon is standing there, shirtless, next to Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo. The guys slam the door shut and stare at the servant, looking pale, asking if that was really their young master. The servant nods, and Sima Gyuk mutters that he must have had too much to drink, while Goong just shakes his head. It was just too hard to accept that this was the real Lee Jin-yeon, one of the infamous 4 heavenly playboy kings. The door swings open again, and all 3 of them jump out of their skin. Lee Jin-yeon orders the servant to take Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo to the dining hall and hook them up with a huge meal. The servant immediately obeys, leading the 2 away. Lee Jin-yeon then looks over at the 3 dudes still standing there and asks why they're just lurking in the hall, telling them to come on in. They all give each other a blank stare, all thinking the exact same thing: send help. These are the guys who call themselves the 4 heavenly kings of wine and women. So that afternoon, the 4 of them are back together at a round table, all because of one absolutely wild rumor. You've got Sima Guok, the hope of the Student Alliance; Jujar, Yang, the dude who's failed the martial exam like 1,000,000 times and has a weak stomach; and Goong, the youngest heir from the West Wind escort household; and finally, the most infamous heir of the Unha merchant group, Lee Jin-yeon. The whole squad reassembled after hearing a rumor that their old friend, who they all thought was a total weakling, was back. The conversation is full of easy jokes and old memories, but inside, Lee Jin-yeon is just sighing. He knows these guys all too well. He knew them all too well. Just a crew of dudes who did nothing but drink, laugh, and talk about girls all day. They even came up with some ridiculously lame crew name for themselves that was too cringe to even say out loud. Jujar then leans over, doing a quick status check on Lee Jin-yeon and asking if he was okay. Our boy Lee Jin-yeon just gives him a quick sharp. Gung chimes in that our MC's gaze is on a whole other level now, so sharp it's like he's actually online and not AFK for once. And Goong admits he's still shook, finding it hard to believe the guy he saw that night was really Lee Jin-yeon, wondering if he was secretly grinding in a hidden training arc. All the while, Simaguk is just spectating from the sidelines, taking it all in without saying a word. He knows deep down that kind of power level isn't something you get from a basic workout routine that's legit martial arts, the kind that's seriously dangerous and has a massive skill tree. So he cuts to the chase, asking who the heck was his master, because there's absolutely no way he learned all that solo. It's just not possible. Simaguk is just stunned. This means Lee Jin-yeon actually had one of those legendary plot armor encounters, the kind of thing that's usually just a myth you hear about in the Jianghu. He was about to press for more details, but Jujar just cuts him off with a loud laugh, saying, "It's about time our boy finally got a lucky RNG drop," even adding he almost didn't recognize him after this massive glow-up. Then in a low voice, our MC hits them with the classic line, "The old Lee Jin-yeon is dead," and his 3 buddies just stare at him, completely lost. Jujar, trying to read the room, asks him what the game plan is now. Our boy replies that he's still got some old quests tied to his sect that need clearing. He's gonna stick with the merchant group to prep for that, but besides his main mission, he couldn't care less about anything else. His only goal is leveling up and getting stronger, period, which makes the whole table go silent, and Gung whispers, asking, "What in the world happened to him?" Jujar swears on his life that this is a completely different character build than the one they used to know, And this jogs a memory for Simaguk. He remembers something from way back before Lee Jinyan dipped. He'd asked if this trip was really just for recovery. And our MC replied that it was basically an exile. Admitting his dad was probably super disappointed. Simaguk had even said that. Maybe this was his chance for a major character arc. Back then, Lee Jinyan had just replied that it sounded kind of fun, and now flashing back to the present. Simaguk just raises his cup and offers a toast. He has to admit it. Lee Jinyan really did it. He's a completely different person now. Jujar totally agrees, saying this epic comeback is definitely something worth celebrating. Gung then jokes around, reminding them that he once suggested they just kidnap the guy before he could leave, but Simaguk roasts him, saying Gung didn't even bother to show up that day. Gung fires back all annoyed, claiming he was busy, but Simaguk just rolls his eyes, clowning him that his business was probably just taking a massive dump. Gung gets totally triggered, ready to throw hands over it, but in the middle of this dumb squabble, Lee Jinyan cracks a small smile, realizing these guys are his true party members. Then he asks them, "What about you guys? Did any of you change?" Which is met with a moment of silence before Simaguk just shrugs his shoulders and Jujar starts laughing, saying that if they were the type to change that easily, they wouldn't even be themselves anymore, prompting our MC to just sigh and tell them to forget, he asked. But a single thought gets stuck in Jujar's head. It was like they were all just players stuck in the tutorial zone, but one of them actually climbed out and got a look at the entire world map. As the night winds down, Jujar says he had a blast and tells our boy to hit him up if he ever needs backup, and to keep grinding so he doesn't get nerfed out in the real world. Simaguk gives one last round of congrats, and with that they go their separate ways into the dark street. Gung starts mumbling about how surreal it is. The one friend who was the biggest train wreck of them all just came back a full-fledged adult, making it feel like their whole youth phase just got patched out of the game. And even Simaguk has to agree that the night feels a lot lonelier than it usually does. Jujar asks where they should head next. Gung immediately suggests a brothel, but Simaguk chews them out and tells them to just go home, taking a shot at Jujar for failing his exams again. Jujar immediately gets defensive, trying to claim he's not actually bad at studying or anything. But my man is absolutely cooked when it comes to exams. Gung just cracks up and suggests they hit the Sweet Sand House for a final round. So, the squad dips into the Sweet Sand House. But at the same time, in the very same building, the leader of the Little Deity sector, Yongji Song, is raging. He slams the table so hard it shakes, screaming about whether Ouyang Hu is really dead, and if the new heir of the Unha merchant group is actually that OPN Ouyang member, confirms it, saying our boy Lee Jinyon beat their captain. In less than 30 moves, a total speedrun, Yongji Song immediately asks what kind of weapon he used, and the answer just makes him laugh this hollow, bitter laugh, because Lee Jinyan did it all with nothing but his bare fists. A weapons expert getting washed by a brawler is a massive L. A total disgrace, so the goon asks what their next move is. Are they gonna go for a rematch? Get some revenge? Yam Ji-song just loses it. How could they possibly get revenge for a fair duel? They aren't some back alley thugs, he yells. The goon shouts back that they were supposed to be allies, that there's honor between them. And without a single moment of hesitation, Yong Ji-song just lops his head right off. He mutters with zero emotion that he doesn't make friends with corpses, then orders his men to get the body out of his sight. A woman named Suran sitting next to him is completely frozen blood, literally splashed across her face, and she is shook. Yom Ji-song glances over, looking just a little surprised. Then he gives this weak apology, complaining the booze tastes awful tonight, before getting up and telling everyone to get lost. As they're storming down the hallway of the Sweet Sand House, Yom Ji-song is just fuming under his breath. The Unha merchant group refused to pay their protection money, and now Ouyang Hu got himself killed by them. This was definitely not some small issue. One of his boys chimes in, saying that this attitude proves the Unha merchant group has completely lost all respect for the Little Deity sect. When he is asked if they're just going to let it slide, their whole crew stops dead, because that's when Guangju Jarian and Simaguk stroll right into the building. They walk right past the Little Deity sect members, completely clueless about the insane tension hanging in the air. Right as the two groups are about to cross paths, Yeom Ji-song intentionally raises his voice, announcing that he's after the Unha merchant group's cash. Simaguk hears this and instantly stops cold. Yong Ji-song keeps yapping, dissing the Unha merchant group, and then he brings up Lee Seong-min, the legendary old family head who was a master trader, rumored to be sitting on a dragon's hoard of gold, which makes him wonder out loud just how much is this young new heir worth. Sima Gyuk immediately pivots and just bolts out the door. He's doing a full sprint back to the Yunha Merchant Group's base, where he finds Lee Jin-yeon arriving completely out of breath. He spills everything he just heard, and our boy Lee Jin-yeon just gives a little yawn, his reply. So chill it's almost insulting, acting like he's touched. That Sima Gyuk really ran all that way just for him. Sima Gyuk raises his voice, trying to make him understand that the little deity sect looks ready to roll out, especially while their own defenses are seriously nerfed. He even suggests calling Gung for backup, but Lee Jin-yeon says nothing instead. Mok, in Seop's warning about Oh Yang-hoo's betrayal, is flashing in his mind. So then he asks where the little deity sect is now. Sima Gyuk replies that they've probably already gone back to their headquarters. Lee Jin-yeon nods and tells him to come inside, leaving Sima Gyuk totally baffled about what the plan is. Our boy just hands him a guard uniform and tells him to get changed. They're standing in the guard force's supply warehouse. Then Lee Jin-yeon asks him a simple question. Does Sima Gyuk know the way to the little deity sect's main base? They have to be back before breakfast. Sima Gyuk starts to freak out, just the two of them. Are you insane? He's begging our MC to reconsider this suicide mission, but Lee Jin-yeon has zero doubts. That's exactly why they need to launch a surprise attack first. He shoves a dagger into Sima Gyuk's hands, with a short command to lead the way, and just like that the raid was on. And boom, they pull up to the front gate of the little deity sect's headquarters. Our boy Jin-yeon scopes out the area, and yep, guards are crawling all over the place. Sima Gyuk wasn't capping. He had said his part of the mission was pretty much done. Jin-yeon just gives him a nod, mission complete for you, buddy, and it finally clicks for Sima Gyuk that his only job was to be the Uber driver to the raid dungeon. He's like, so what's the plan? How are we even getting past the front door? With a tiny smirk, our MC just lifts his leg and completely obliterates the main gate, kicking it wide open. He just strolls on in zero hesitation. There he goes, our boy Jin-yeon, just casually walking through the little deity sect's front lawn. He's not even running a stealth build, just striding past all these guards without a single care in the world. And right in the middle of the courtyard, he makes his voice heard. He just yells out asking where their leader is hiding, prompting some random guard to shout that he's insane. But that sentence never got finished, because Jin-yeon had already snapped his neck, the body thudding to the ground. Jin-yeon warns the other guards not to make him repeat himself. But of course another NPC has to step up, talking trash and asking if our boy knows whose turf he's on. Just then, Yeom-ji-sung himself pops up on a balcony wondering what all the racket is about. Looking down, he asks who the kid is, and Jin-yeon introduces himself as an assassin, just double-checking something. He wanted to confirm that this guy was in fact Yeom-ji-sung, the shot caller for the little deity sect. Yeom-ji-sung lets out a grin thinking the whole situation is sus, an assassin just waltzing in through the front door. This is definitely not standard procedure. His eyes then drift down to Jin-yeon's knuckles, seeing they're covered in scars and calluses. Those are not the hands of some pampered heir. So he asks straight up if Jin-yeon is the successor to the Yunha Merchant Group. Our boy just shrugs it off like it's no big deal, which gets a little chuckle out of Yeom-ji-sung, who can't believe his luck. He's thinking, if a VIP like this came to him directly, oh, he was gonna milk this situation for everything it was worth. A net suddenly gets thrown from above, but Jin-yeon's movement is so fluid he dodges it with ease. He then snatches the net right out of the air, and the motion triggers a flash of muscle memory, reminding him of his old fights against the demonic faction. Even though this body's been nerfed, he knows it's still way more than enough to handle these clowns. He whips the net around like it's a legendary weapon, sending guards flying left and right, with a slick smile on his face. The courtyard is filled with screams. One guard stammers in shock that our boy is fighting barehanded. Another whispers that he's a total monster. Then an arrow zips past, nicking Jin-yeon's face and making his mask fall off. His expression hardens, clearly annoyed now, and as Yeom-ji-sung raises his voice, he finally gets a good look at Jin-yeon's face. Turns out Yeom-ji-sung really didn't want to use this next weapon because it was crazy expensive. But hey, since Jin-yeon is such a special guest and all, he decides to make an exception just as a few guards rush forward, grabbing onto our MC's legs to pin him down. One of them is trembling, knowing that if things keep going this way, they are absolutely cooked. Death is waiting for them. Yeom-ji-sung glares down, asking if Jin-yeon can possibly dodge this next attack. Then he gives the command. A volley of arrows bursts forth, dozens of crossbows firing without a second thought, and our boy's eyes narrow. He can see that Yeom-ji-sung doesn't give a damn if his own men get caught in the crossfire. That's a level of betrayal so grimy that even members of the demonic faction would find it disgusting. Suddenly, a shout comes from outside. It's Sima Gyuk, and he hurls a dagger high into the air, which Jinyan catches perfectly. In one smooth motion, the blade spins in his hand. He deflects every single arrow that comes his way, and the entire courtyard just freezes in disbelief. Yeom Jisong's face goes stiff. He can't process how a cheap-ass dagger just parried his entire volley. Jin Eon glances over, gives Sima Gyuk a quick thumbs up, and without pausing, he yeets the dagger straight back. The blade just grazes Yeom Jisong's neck, leaving only a paper-thin cut. It was just enough to serve as a warning. Our MC announces that he rarely uses bladed weapons, but for Yeom Jisong, he's more than willing to make an exception. You can see the curses running through Yeom Jisong's mind as he screams at his men, ordering them to attack now. Our boy Lee Jineon was rocking a stone-cold expression. He made it clear that his main class was a brawler, then instantly blitzed forward. Yeom Jisong totally panicked at yanking Suran in front of him like a human shield, but our MC didn't even slow down. He just pivoted. Zipping right behind them, he slammed Yeom Jisong so hard, the dude went flying, all while Suran was left completely untouched. Lee Jineon told her to get some distance while Yeom Jisong stumbled around, his mind just absolutely scrambled. How could the heir to the Unha merchant group possibly fight like that? His movements were less rich kid and more seasoned assassin. This guy's build was way different than some merchant's son. Lee Jineon sauntered closer, asking what Yeom Jisong was gawking at, like did he have any last words? And just like that, Yeom Jisong started groveling, offering a mountain of cash, promising he wouldn't cheap out if he was allowed to live. Lee Jineon's reply was a nasty kick to the jaw, sending coins flying out of his clothes. Our boy just stared him down, questioning why losers like him always try to put a price tag on a human life. He picked up a couple coins, then just tossed them aside, saying he had no use for that junk. Without any hesitation, his fist punched a hole straight through Yeom Jisong's chest, crushing his heart. Everything froze. The room went dead silent, with all eyes locked on. The lifeless body Lee Jineon stood over him and muttered quietly that the view was just disgusting. Once dawn started to break, you see Lee Jineon, Sima Gyuk, and Suran walking together. Leaving the scene of that absolutely savage boss battle, Sima Maguk shot a look at our boy, speaking up a little hesitantly, since they were heading in different directions. He offered to escort the lady the rest of the way, and Lee Jineon agreed, handing her over to Sima Gyuk's care, and as he walked off, our MC threw up a little wave. Sima Gyuk waved back, while the woman bowed respectfully, and on their way she finally broke the silence to greet him. Asking if he was in fact Sima Gyuk, Sima Gyuk literally jolted to a stop, pulling down his mask and asking how she blew his cover. The woman just gave a soft smile, admitting she'd seen him hanging around the Sweet Sen house pretty often. And on top of that, being so tight with Lee, Jineon made it a total dead giveaway. Sima Gyuk gave a slight nod. Suran then did a deep bow, thanking him for everything he'd done. That day she even made a promise that if he ever came back, she'd pour him the absolute best rice wine. But Sima Gyuk just grunted, saying it wasn't necessary. He felt like he didn't deserve it, and added that he wasn't planning on going back to the red light district anyway. Suran looked up, with a warm smile telling him that Sima Gyuk had truly seriously changed, which made him pause for a second, before he quietly replied that he had to change his gaze, followed Lee Jineon's figure shrinking in the distance. His buddy was already so far ahead in the grind, and he couldn't afford to be left behind back at the Unha merchant group crib. The dinner table was absolutely stacked with mouth-watering dishes. Yu Jinbo and Yu Myungbo were staring from the background, their eyes sparkling like it was Christmas. Our boy Lee Jineon, fresh from a shower, walked into the room, sat down with them, and gave the signal. To just dig in and relax, the two brothers nodded politely. Lee Jineon told them not to be shy and to stuff their faces whenever they felt hungry, which made them look at each other. Yuk Jinbo remarked that this merchant family lifestyle was totally OP, while Yuk Myungbo wondered something. Was eating 7 times a day actually allowed? Our MC just laughed it off, saying, of course it was. Then one of the brothers noticed the cut on his face, which already looked like it was closing up, and asked if he was okay after last night. Lee Jineon went quiet for a beat. Before finally answering that, he managed to clear the stage. But underneath that calm facade, a much heavier mental debuff was still active. Lee Jineon had to admit it. Even though that fight was a total surprise quest, having his power core rattled like that was something that would have been literally impossible in his previous life. No cap. If he was really going to protect the Unha merchant group himself and face off. Directly against all those demonic clans, he knew he was going to need Our boy knows he's got to get way stronger, realizing that just grinding mobs isn't going to cut it anymore. He needs a serious power-up, and right on cue. A voice from outside his room announces that a package has arrived just for him. Our MC is completely shook, like you sure you got the right guy, and then a servant walks in carrying a whole bunch of parcels, dropping the loot right on the floor in front of him. As he starts looking through the delivery, Ion admits to himself he wasn't expecting an Amazon package today, so he tears open one of the letters to figure out what's going on. Turns out the letter is from his buddy Goong, and it explains that after they parted ways, Goong managed to hit up a tavern for just one single drink before actually going home. He's framing it like it's this massive personal achievement, and Lee Jin Aeon just scoffs sarcastically, thinking that a feat like that totally deserves its own chapter in the martial arts history books, lol. He keeps on reading, skipping down to the PS, where Goong writes that he actually got a package from our MC's dad the other day, but completely spaced on handing it over. As Jin Eon slowly starts unboxing the gift, he reads the last line where Goong says he's just gonna leave this stuff before heading home, hoping our boy will help protect their escort agency once he's all leveled up. But Jin Eon's attention is already laser-focused on the contents of the box. He recognizes it in a heartbeat. It's a century root, and from the vibes it's giving off, this thing is at least 400 to 500 years old. This is some ancient stuff, and if his RNG is good, this item might be the key to leveling up his White Lightning 10-face art to the 5th tier. A small smile creeps onto his face. This is what having a real one for a friend feels like. But then he notices something else. There's a whole other box. The note on top says the gift is from the Taiho Merchant Group. You know, as a little nod to the long and trusting relationship between their two families. Lee Jin Eon's brain clicks. Toho. Aren't they one of the most loaded merchant guilds in the entire Central Plains? He realizes his dad must have called in a huge favor, and he's honestly shocked by this level of support as the box opens. His jaw hits the floor. Inside is pure void stone milk. He knows it for sure. This is a mythical grade elixir, the kind of thing most people only ever get to hear about in stories. There are only a few items on the same level, like the 1,000-year spirit fruit, the moon elixir flower, or the 10,000-year snow. Ginseng, all of them are basically impossible to get. Jin Nyan confirms that this is legit, pure void stone milk. Even in his past life, he only ever managed to taste a few drops. He's just sitting there, wondering how in the world did a bunch of merchants get an item that even OP martial artists would be cooked trying to find. He then calls for Yuk Jinbo and Yuk Myungbo, telling them to get in there. And he hands each of them a century root, saying he's about to start his training montage and they need to guard the door. He also says to eat. After he's finished, Yuk Jinbo stares at the root like it's a weird vegetable and asks what it is, and Lee Jin Eon explains that it's a rare buff item that's good for the body, so they better not waste it. But Yuk Jinbo looks super doubtful. He just swings open a side door, showing off a huge storage room, and says the head merchant has already stockpiled a mountain of similar treasures, all of them set aside specifically for Lee Jin Eon. For a hot second, our boy is just dead silent, realizing that money is the most OP skill in the game. 2 hours later, Lee Jin Eon is meditating after taking the rare elixir, and as the energy starts swirling through his body, he realizes it tastes bitter and totally flavorless, which is pretty much what martial arts training feels like. It's a painful grind that seems to give 0 XP at the start. Suddenly, an insane heat starts to spread through him, and he knows if he was still the old low-level Jinyon, his body would have been absolutely destroyed by this. But thanks to all the stat points he's gained so far, he can actually tank the damage, even as the pain levels up into a raging inferno, burning him from the inside out, the more he tries to suppress it. As that raw power went absolutely berserk inside him, our boy just decided to redline the whole damn thing, triggering a massive detonation. A shockwave of pure energy rocked the room to its foundations, and only after what felt like an eternity did. Once the dust settled, our MC felt that new and improved Kai flowing through him, clenching his fist with a newfound solid as a rock confidence. Boom! He did it. Level 5 has been unlocked. But even with the power-up, he could tell his body was still lagging, like trying to run a next-gen game on a potato PC because those nasty alcohol debuffs hadn't been fully purged. He basically said goodbye to his old nerfed self, knowing the tutorial was officially over and the real boss fights were just getting started. His eyes locked onto his next item, the bottle of pure void stone milk. No hesitation, no second thoughts. My man just picked it up and chugged the entire thing. He knew absorbing this elixir was basically like trying to overclock your CPU with a fire hose. A super risky craft that would almost certainly shatter, but he was betting everything on that 1% success rate. If he survived this RNG check, the power boost would be insane and right on cue. The spiritual energy from the milk went absolutely nuclear inside him. That stuff was tearing through his system, slamming into every single chi pathway like a demolition crew in a final stress test. It was pushing his body past the red line, and you could see the system instability start to creep in. This OP power-up was clearly demanding a steep price for his audacity. But our boy, he just gritted his teeth, his resolve turning to diamond. He knew if he could just clear this insane trial, the XP and loot on the other side would be absolutely game-breaking. Fast forward 7 days, and Hwayon is outside our MC's room, pacing back and forth, looking stressed as hell. It's been a full week since our boy started his power-up session, and there's been nothing but dead silence, which is super sus. The anxiety was crawling up his spine when the twin sisters showed up, looking just as concerned, but when he asked for an update, they just explained that our MC had put up a giant "Do Not Disturb" sign and forbidden anyone from entering. Hwayon just nodded, respecting the grind, but you could still see the worry etched all over his face. He was clearly shook. And then suddenly, kaboom, a massive explosion rips through the room, and a hurricane-force wind blasts out, forcing the twins to shield Hwayon. They all whipped their heads back towards the room, just in time to see a figure. It's Lee Jinyan just hanging there in midair with this seriously creepy glow in his eyes. Then this disgusting stench hits them like a truck, forcing Hwayon to cover his nose. It was that unmistakable smell, a dead giveaway for T deviation. And just like that, his body dropped out of the air and slammed onto the floor hard. Hwayon and the twins immediately rushed over to him, screaming his name. He dropped to his knees, trying to get him to snap out of it, but our boy was just kneeling there, gasping for air. His breathing was all over the place, and when Hwayon tried to talk to him again, his voice filled with panic. Our boy slowly lifted his head, said nothing, and just robotically stood up and started walking towards the door. Hwayon called out again, and this time our MC finally spoke in a low, strained voice, saying the heat inside him was literally cooking him alive. He told them straight up, "Do not follow me." And then he was gone, a blur of motion, as he parkoured across the rooftops and vanished over the wall. Back in the room, the twins and Hwayon just looked at each other totally freaked out. Because even though it was a cool day, our boy was running a fatal level fever. Meanwhile, our MC is speedrunning across the city's rooftops, his entire body feeling like it's literally on fire. His physical build just isn't high level enough to handle this insane new power surge. That energy is a ticking time bomb, and if he goes nuclear in the middle of the city, he'll wipe the Yunha merchant group off the map. He'd probably take out the entire city block with them, so he's pushing himself to the absolute limit, trying to get as far away as possible. Finally, he reaches a desolate rocky mountainside and grinds to a halt. Freaking white lightning is now crackling all over his body, arcing down his arms and legs like he's charging up an ultimate attack. The pressure has hit critical mass. He can't contain it anymore, and he's made his choice. With his mind made up, our boy decided to let it all rip. His right hand shot into the air, and with a deafening roar, a colossal lightning bolt just nuked the area. It slammed straight into the mountainside with a blinding flash, leaving a few nearby travelers totally shook and frozen on the spot. That bolt looked like it punched its way up from the earth itself. And right on cue, the heavens opened up and a massive downpour began. The rain just started soaking everything in sight. And there in the middle of it all was Lee Jinyan, standing perfectly still in his now shredded clothes, his lips moving as he counted. He was literally tallying up the insane amount of energy he'd just unleashed. His mastery over it had reached a whole new tier. His white lightning art just broke through to the 8th level. Talk about a massive XP boost. A little later, that same crazy rain is hammering the city, and our boy is just strolling calmly down the street, his tattered clothes clinging to his frame. You can bet he was getting some weird looks with people whispering about why some half-naked dude was just vibing in a thunderstorm. A couple of the ladies, though, were looking at him with straight-up hard eyes. A tiny smirk just played on his lips. He ducks into a clothing store, picks out a new set of threads, and asks for the price, but the shop owner just immediately shakes his head. The guy flat out refused to take his money even when Li Jinian kept trying to pay. The man explained that ever since the Yang clan and the little deity sect got put in their place, the whole area had changed. It was so much safer now, he could even bring his kids to the shop without being afraid. So this was his way of saying thanks. He saw it as a blessing. And then you see these two little kids peeking out shyly from behind a clothing rack. The shopkeeper even offered him an umbrella since the storm wasn't letting up, and his kids stepped forward to hand it over. Lai Jin Ion took it with a genuinely warm smile and a nod, then headed back out into the rain. As he stepped outside and popped the umbrella open, the owner and his two kids were waving at him from the doorway. They had the biggest smiles on their faces as he walked away, melting back into the crowded, rainy street. As he walked, he realized the whole atmosphere felt way calmer than he remembered. The district was a completely different world. You could really see the positive fallout from the conflicts he'd ended order, and a sense of safety were back online. Laughter was echoing from all over. People were out shopping and chatting, just living their best lives. Not even the heavy rain could stop them. And our MC just watched it all unfold in silence, a small smile on his face. He even closed his eyes for a second, thinking this whole peace and quiet thing wasn't so bad after all. This casual walk in the rain was a strange but nice change, until of course the tranquility was absolutely shattered by shouting from down the street. Some dude was in a total panic, screaming at people to get out of the way. Then another voice yelled for someone to be captured, and of course our boy's eyes snapped over to the commotion. And he just freezes, because the guy being chased is Chu Myung-ho, and the fugitive spots him at the exact same moment. The dude literally skids to a halt, right next to our MC, flashing this huge grin like they're old buddies meeting up for a drink. Chu Myung-ho just casually greets him, while making small talk about how hard it's raining, and Li Jinian just lets out this short sigh before hitting him with a blunt response, basically telling him that his life is and always has been a complete dumpster fire. At that very moment, far away from the drama on the street, a secret meeting was going down in the hall of the Moyoung clan's residence. All the clan bosses were there, and some guy named Dogom Yong was gassing up Moyoung Bin, saying how great it was to have the council back together, and thanking him for organizing it. Moyoung Bin plays it all humble, before deciding to spill some pretty awkward tea that's been going around. He mentions a little rumor he heard about a certain Yang who decided to challenge a merchant's heir, and ended up getting permanently logged out of life. He then asks if the rumor is true, and the Yang family head just bows his head dead silent as whispers erupt in the hall. Everyone started murmuring. You could hear them saying stuff like, "Aren't the Yangs supposed to be these legendary martial artists?" But this whole incident with some random merchant's kid turned into a massive public embarrassment. Suddenly, a booming laugh cuts through the tension coming from Nam Gung-woo, the Blade Emperor himself. He starts openly clowning on them, saying that watching them get defeated by a merchant's heir was way more entertaining than any show. You can see the Yang leader physically shaking with rage, while Moyoung Bin just has to laugh awkwardly, trying to deal with the insane level of secondhand cringe in the room. Ouyang. Sayang looks up, his voice dripping with ice, as he just drops the bomb. Ouyang-hu has been officially nerfed, and get this, it was an inside job by the clan. He adds that the merchant's heir is about to get a front row seat for the Ouyang family's epic comeback tour, a masterclass in raw power right on these streets. Meanwhile, in the pouring rain, the goons chasing Chul Myung-ho skid to a stop, right in front of our boy Li Jinian, and one of them starts barking orders. He's telling him to hand over the fugitive, basically giving the classic, "This isn't your side quest, kid" speech. Jinian, completely unbothered, just glances over at Chul Myung-ho with a little smirk and asks, "So who are these clowns?" With a bitter laugh, Chul Myung-ho starts to explain who these jokers are. They're basically a crew of low-level thugs who've been griefing the whole area, calling themselves the cringy Crimson Reaper Alliance. Their whole goal is to pull his own control and take over the entire territory. He goes on saying he used to run an auction house here, but when he popped back in to handle some business, the place had already been yoinked by these wannabes who he calls nothing more than loot goblins, and that's when Jinian's eyes drop to Chul's hands. Our boy asks what's up with them, and Chul Myung-ho just holds up his hands with a wry smile, admitting the situation is kinda cooked. Yeah, his hands are still basically useless, so Li Jinian steps forward, pointing straight at the mob. In a super calm voice, he's like, "Since you guys clearly aren't from around here, let me spell it out for you. You can come back and try again only after my boy's hands have fully healed. Until then, you need to get lost," which makes the bandits absolutely lose it. They're laughing like our MC is a total noob. They're all like, "Does this guy even know how the world works?" But under all that trash talk, you can feel the entire mood shift. A weird pressure is building. It's like this invisible AOE debuff that's giving them all the chills. One of them gets totally triggered and stomps forward screaming that Jinyeon has a death wish and pointing right in his face. His buddy tries to hold him back, warning him. "Dude, don't be an idiot," he's saying. But nope, the warning gets completely ignored. The guy's threat isn't even halfway out of his mouth before Jinyeon's finger flashes, landing a tiny little flick right on his forehead. And that little tap sends the dude flying backwards like a rag doll. Then, with a voice as cold as ice, our boy speaks. He says he's seriously hungry right now, and if they force this fight, he has zero problem wiping their entire party. So he suggests they take this one chance to just log off and walk away. He even adds they can reschedule this boss fight for later, either with Chul Myung-ho or with him. Instantly, the whole crew just bows in unison. You can practically see the fear radiating off them as they start wishing him well. Like, "Oh great, sir, please have a safe and pleasant journey onwards." Jinyeon just gives a simple, cool nod, and the bandits immediately start backing away into the rain. They even give a little wave before vanishing, which makes Chul Myung-ho just stare after them and laugh. He turns to Jinyeon with this huge grin and demands our boy buy him some food, claiming that he's starving too. "Just one bowl of noodles is all he needs," he says. You know this guy always gotta be over the top with his delivery. Chul Myung-ho then brings up their first encounter, saying it wasn't even Jinyeon's OP punch that almost sent him to the respawn screen. It was actually the hunger debuff. He starts complaining that ever since the dawn of time, everyone from the Central Plains knows that food is the ultimate stat buff, and that Jinyeon should have been worried about feeding him before even thinking about his injuries. Our boy Jinyeon just heaves this annoyed sigh and tells him he could have just asked for food directly without the whole soap opera. He calls Chul Myung-ho a certified psycho, which just makes the guy laugh and suggests they hit up the nearest noodle place. So, next thing you know, they're at the restaurant. They're sitting across from each other when Chul Myung-ho lets out this super satisfied sigh, saying that he finally feels alive again. Then he starts teasing Jinyeon's massive appetite, asking if our boy started some kind of beggar's guild inside his stomach, because back in the day he used to eat super sparingly. But now he's just inhaling dishes like there's no tomorrow, and he's like, whoa, a person shouldn't go through that much character development that fast. You're supposed to just ride the natural waves of life, man. Our boy signals the waiter ready for round 2 of dinner, first ordering 2 more bowls, but then he's like, nah, let's make it 4. You know, for good measure. The conversation turns to the twins, and Jinyeon casually mentions they're off grinding somewhere. Chul Myung-ho lets out a little laugh, figuring their stats must be through the roof by now. Though he does complain that their food bill must be a nightmare, calling the duo a pair of human black holes. Lee Jinyeon just brushes it off, saying his wallet is deep enough to handle it. Laughing, Chul Myung-ho points out he pitched in too, but then the whole vibe shifts, getting dead serious as he asks how you actually learn martial arts the right way. Our MC just cocks his head, totally confused by this sudden desire to start a training arc. With a serious look, Chul Myung-ho leans in close, admitting he needs to know if it's even possible for him to solo the Crimson Reaper if he just grinds hard enough. Lee Jinyeon actually stops eating for a second, the gears visibly turning, before he asks all humble if Myung-ho wants him to be his teacher. Myung-ho practically jumps at the offer, saying he'd be beyond grateful if that happened. So, Jinyeon lays down the terms and conditions, asking if he'll follow his every command, no questions asked. Pumping up his chest, Chul Myung-ho reintroduces himself as the legendary poisonous fox, swearing that he'll obey without fail. So Jinyeon just points to the ground and tells him to bow. Myung-ho looks super awkward, scratching his head and grumbling about how cringe this is, but he actually gets down on his knees and bows with one condition. He warns Jinyeon to keep his promise, or he might just have to go and cause a scene at the Unha Merchant Group headquarters. Without a single word, our boy grabs a nearby umbrella and gives it a smooth swing, showing off one super simple move before pointing it at him. The order is simple, just copy that, but Myung-ho just stares back in total disbelief, asking if that's seriously it, to which Jinyeon flatly replies, what more did you expect, causing Myung-ho's patience to just snap. He shoots up from the ground yelling that he just ate dirt for him, threatening to start a full-blown riot if Jinyeon isn't taking this seriously. And for that outburst, the umbrella comes down hard right on his head. Jinyeon tells him to shut it, then gives him the real quest objective: hold the umbrella with one hand and repeat that same move 100,000 times. Myung-ho is completely floored, his body literally trembling as he stammers out the number. It's not 1,000. It's not even 10,000. It's 100,000 reps, and Jin Eon's gaze gets razor sharp, saying, if the poisonous fox has that much energy to flap his gums, he should just drop the umbrella and leave, prompting a shocked Myung-ho to ask if he's serious as the atmosphere in the room drops to freezing. Jin, Ion yanks him by the collar, his eyes narrowed into slits as he speaks in a lay dangerous tone, asking if he honestly believes some basic childish-looking move is enough to actually kill a person. He lays it out if he had practiced that one umbrella swing 100,000 times. Half of those bandits they fought earlier would be dead, even if he was only using a wooden sword. But instead he just ran like a scared little mouse. Jin Ion's voice turns ice cold, telling him that if he wants to live his life as a coward, he might as well be dead. Myung-ho is stunned into silence for a moment, but then a tiny smirk creeps onto his face as he mutters that he doesn't want to kill anyone, which only hardens Jin Yeon's stare as he asks if he's a mouse or the poisonous fox telling him to know his role and shut his mouth. And then there's just silence. The only sound is the rain outside filling the room as they both stare out the window, watching people pass by on the soaked streets. A little while later, the rain finally stops and sunlight slowly starts to poke through the clouds. Myung-ho stands up and asks to borrow the umbrella, not even waiting for an answer, before he just walks right out of the restaurant. A server immediately comes over to Jin Yeon and politely asks if he's going to be covering his friend's bill as well. Our boy just reaches into his pocket and the server gives him a thankful smile, leaving Jin Yeon to sit there all alone. So, our boy Lee Jin Yeon is basically just in spectator mode, waiting to see if Chul Myung-ho is going to finally debug his life or just stay cooked. He's thinking back to when Chul Myung-ho was talking a big game about wanting a boss fight with the Crimson Reaper, the alliance leader. That Crimson Reaper dude is just posted up arms crossed looking like the final boss in a video game. You can't just take back words like that. It's a verbal contract. That showdown is basically scheduled to happen whether they like it or not. Then we get a hard cut to some dark room reeking of blood where a man is calmly sitting in front of two fresh corpses, while a few of his boys are there too. His goons are kneeling in front of him with their heads bowed, shaking like they've seen a ghost. Not a single one dares to even look at his face. With a voice colder than my ex's heart, the guy demands they explain how they failed so spectacularly. They somehow let Chul Myung-ho just slip away and the bandits are tripping over themselves trying to explain they almost had him. But get this, their excuse is that they got completely stonewalled by one of Chul Myung-ho's friends. Their voices are cracking as they explain, it was the young master from the merchant group, and one of them adds that his power level was just completely broken. What even is this power scaling? Lee Jin Aeon's strength was apparently just that terrifying rumors were flying around calling him the most OP player in the entire Yanghua server. The main guy's gaze narrows, and his aura gets so sharp, it makes the bandit physically flinch from the pure pressure. In a voice that could give you frostbite, he commands them to get everything ready immediately. Because Lee Jin Eon and Ju Myung-ho are now officially marked for death. They gotta be tracked down and permanently banned from life. A bit later, we catch up with our MC as he's grinding some XP. He's telling one of the twins that the Crimson Reaper is known for being an absolute psycho. The dude would rather rip his enemies to shreds with his bare hands. The leaders of the Jangzon Sect, the Nopio Sect, the Horn Dragons, and even Crimson Reaper Han, all of them got absolutely deleted by this guy. The Crimson Reaper's leader basically speedran their demises in a crazy short amount of time. He also gobbled up a bunch of other territories around Yanghua, building an empire from their ashes. And his influence has grown so massive. The whole region of Yanghua is basically in a chokehold. The escort agency, the merchant guild, local inns, even the pleasure houses, all have to pay him a tax. The twin points out that not even Chul Myung-ho could escape the shakedown, and our boy Lee Jin Eon is just like, yep, I heard. He got word that Chul Myung-ho lost his entire auction house business to the Reaper. Apparently it all went down just the day before, and the twin just nods, confirming the intel. He says that move is perfectly in character for the Reaper, which really paints a picture of the absolute tyrant they're up against. This Crimson Reaper guy is a top-tier bully who can't be ignored, and if Lee Jin Eon's real identity ever gets leaked, the situation will get 1,000,000 times worse. So, the first move is pretty much inevitable, and it's happening in Yanghua's most crowded district, right in front of this giant glamorous fashion house building. Inside, some lady is ordering a servant to go check on a room. She wants to know if their special guest has left yet, but then a piercing scream just echoes through the entire building. The woman immediately sprints toward the sound, demanding to know what in the world just happened. A servant, shaking like a leaf, stammers out that someone broke into the leader's room. The Crimson Reaper's private room, and some girl named Ciolus is still inside, sending everyone into a total panic. Just then, another staff member rushes in with news that a new visitor just arrived downstairs, and this woman, Zhonghua, decides she'll handle it. She chooses to go welcome this new person herself, while telling the others to get the terrified girl out of there so she can calm down. Downstairs, Zhonghua forces a polite smile for the new guest. And surprise, it's our boy, Li Jin Eon. She tries to give her little welcome speech, but he completely interrupts her before she can even finish her sentence. Our MC just cuts right to the chase, asking if the leader of the Crimson Reaper is here. Zhonghua is visibly shook, asking if he means the guildmaster, and if he has an appointment, but the look he gives her is pure ice. Li Jin Eon's reply is short and cold. He just wants to know if the Crimson Reaper is on the upper floor. Zhonghua hesitates for a second, her eyes darting to all the goons posted around the lobby. After a silence that felt like forever, she finally admits that, yes, the Crimson Reaper is indeed upstairs. Our boy Li Jinyang doesn't even wait for another word. He just strolls right past her and issues a command. Evacuate all the girls right now. And Zhonghua finally seems to get the picture. She tries to warn him that the Crimson Reaper is a dude with a seriously nasty temper, but Li Jinyang just gives a little smirk and says he'll take care of it. As our MC starts climbing the stairs, some random bandit yells at him, forbidding him from entering the area, but he just keeps walking, completely unbothered. But some dude tries a sneak attack from behind, running his mouth the whole time while lunging with a spear. Our boy Li Jinyang just casually snatches the spear out of the air, gives it a little twirl, and then prepares to return to sender, sending that bandit flying right back down to the first floor lobby. And just like that, the whole place erupts into chaos. All the other goons are screaming, ready to jump our boy, asking if he even knows whose turf he just stepped on, as hundreds more pour down from the upper levels, like a waterfall of angry NPCs. But Li Jinyang, he just stands there, hands calmly behind his back, looking completely unbothered, with ice in his veins. He just asks in a voice colder than my ex's heart, which floor is the Crimson Reaper on? But the only answer he gets is a bunch of angry yells as weapons start swinging at him from every direction, and you can see lightning start to crackle in his hands. His logic is simple. If the final boss won't come down for a meet and greet, then our boy is just going to have to speedrun every single room until he finds him. The first idiot decides to charge in head first. Li Jin Eon just grabs him by the dome and slams him into the floor so hard it cracks, unleashing a wave of lightning energy that just radiates from his body. It forms a legit electric force field, knocking back all the other bandits, but one guy with a massive mace still swings for the fences. Our MC just sidesteps it easy as pie. He yoinks the weapon, and with some seriously brutal force, he swings it right back, absolutely crushing the bandit's face. The dude gets launched clean through a wall. Li Jin Eon gives a quick glance at the mess he's made. This clearly isn't the room he's looking for. So he just hops over the railing, still holding the mace, and starts going to town, smashing through wall after wall like the Kool-Aid man on a mission. Any bandit that even thought about getting in his way got one shot, no questions asked. After the whole floor is completely wrecked, he just tosses the weapon aside like it's nothing. Our boy dusts off his hands. He knows his target is on the next level, waiting in a room upstairs. Meanwhile, the Crimson Reaper himself is just chilling on his bed, not a care in the world. Suddenly, the door gets blasted off its hinges, and two of his guards get thrown inside. Their bodies are totally cooked, and they just lie there, helpless. A bandit from the hallway screams in pure panic, announcing that a guy named Li Jin Eon has crashed the party. And there he is, our boy, steps into the room, smashing the last goon's head into the floor for good measure. He stops right in front of the Crimson Reaper, who starts smirking as the gears in his head finally turn and he realizes who he's dealing with. Thinking about the mountain of bodies downstairs, he slowly rises to his feet. The boss fight is about to start, and of course he gets all sarcastic about the warm welcome and asks if the climb up all those stairs was too tiring. But Li Jin Eon is completely unfazed. I mean, is this his first time climbing over a pile of defeated enemies to get to the boss? The Crimson Reaper is a huge dude. He literally towers over our MC as he looks down, with this massive smug grin bragging about how he's used to looking down on people. He even does a casual hair flip, what a diva. But then our MC's gaze shifts, locking onto the bed, where the dead body of a servant girl is just lying there. The Reaper follows his eyes and just casually explains that it was an accident, you know? His own OP powers are just so hard to control. He then orders someone to drag the body out, and that right there was the trigger. Lee Jin-yan's entire aura shifts, and a terrifying killing intent floods the room. The air feels like it's frozen solid, but the Crimson Reaper just smirks back at him. He actually finds that death glare interesting, saying it reminds him of all the other people who tried and failed to kill him in the past. They all ended up 6 feet under by his hand, while outside the building, absolute mayhem is breaking loose, as workers and bandits alike are running for their lives. They're evacuating the entire district in a panic, and one guy, bless his heart, asks with a shaky voice, "What in the world is going on?" The only reply he gets is a frantic scream that some absolute madman is on a rampage inside. While this entire entertainment house is getting torn to shreds, a dude in a mask just casually strolls into the chaos, swinging something. It's an umbrella, and he tells some low-level bandit to get lost, then just says a number 2,874. The bandit is completely shook, like his brain just hit a lag spike and he has no idea what that means. And the next swing just completely caves his skull in. The mask comes off, and of course it's our boy Cool Myung-ho who immediately moves forward, still counting every swing he makes. He's literally complaining mid-fight about how slow the grind is to unlock his 10,000 explosion attack achievement. Then bam! A massive explosion rocks the roof of the building. The whole district shakes and everyone goes dead silent. No one can even process what just happened. But up on the roof, the Crimson Reaper gets absolutely launched into the air by the hit. Our MC Lee Jin-ion dives right after him from above, slamming down with both hands to just spike the Crimson Reaper's body, sending him crashing into the ground outside the building. Lee Jin-ion nails the superhero landing surrounded by the leftover bandits, while the Crimson Reaper slowly gets up, just brushing the dust off his body. And the guy is actually smiling like he's enjoying this whole beatdown, so without missing a beat, our MC just sheds his outer jacket. The Crimson Reaper screams at his lackeys to grab their weapons. They hand him this huge mace, and he gives it a little warm-up swing, saying, "At least our boy Lee Jin-ion deserves a decent boss fight." And with that, he hurls the mace. But Lee Jin-ion just snatches it out of the air with one hand and yanks with some absolutely insane super strength. The Crimson Reaper's eyes nearly pop out of his head as he gets dragged forward, totally unable to resist the pull at all. He quickly lets go of the mace, trying to use the rebound force to launch a counterattack. And with that, the real fight is officially on. Crimson Reaper lunges forward with explosive speed, yelling at our boy to just try and block his next attack. But Lee Jin-ion doesn't even flinch, he's totally unbothered. He can tell just from his opponent's movements that the Crimson Reaper has mastered the Meteor Hammer technique and his fist fighting. Every single move is precise and efficient, not a wasted motion in sight. You can tell he has the foundation of a true orthodox martial artist, but our MC's expression just goes cold. This guy in front of him clearly hasn't realized one crucial detail: he's not fighting some regular Joe, and a fist smashes straight into his torso. It's a hit with absolutely devastating power. The impact just sucks the air right out of the Crimson Reaper's lungs, making him stagger back, trying to hold in a pained groan. Lee Jin-ion just hops backward, calmly analyzing the reaction to his attack. But the Crimson Reaper lets out this weird, stiff laugh, admitting our boy's punch game is no joke, and then he screams that the real fight is only just beginning. A huge shockwave of energy just explodes from the Crimson Reaper's body. His entire shirt just gets vaporized into dust, and filled with a burning rage, he charges again, instantly appearing right in front of Lee Jin-ion, looking like he's about to rip him to shreds. But before that attack can even get going, our MC's hand is already clamped tight around his neck. With an ice-cold look on his face, Lee Jin-ion just slams the Crimson Reaper down into the ground. He pins him there without any mercy, and you can see sweat just pouring down the Crimson Reaper's face. His teeth are clenched so hard they might crack. He's using every last bit of strength he has to try and fight back. But it's totally useless. The power gap is just way too massive. And without giving him a moment to breathe, Lee Jin-ion grabs the Crimson Reaper by the face. A storm of lightning starts crackling all around his body. It's arcing wildly in the air as he presses his knee down harder on the Crimson Reaper's neck, forcing him to look up from the lowest possible position. The pressure in his voice is just dripping with controlled anger as he says if the Crimson Reaper had ever treated anyone else with even a little bit of humanity, this whole situation wouldn't have ended like this. But the Crimson Reaper actually laughs, spitting out one last taunt that just completely shatters our MC's patience. Lee Jin-ion's face goes completely blank, and in a dead-flat voice he declares that the punishment has now begun. Lightning just keeps spamming the Crimson Reaper's body non-stop, This dude's screams are absolutely echoing, and our boy Jinyan starts power scaling his attacks, literally calling out his levels like he's in a video game. Stage 2, Stage 3, Stage 4. He hits Stage 5 and all the bandit NPCs around him are just frozen solid with terror until one of them finally screams. His voice is shaking, begging for it to stop, when another goon suddenly points up at the sky above them. A massive hand made of pure white lightning is just looming over them, completely blotting out the sky. He calls out the skill White Lightning 10. Face art rears back his arm and just slams it down, causing a colossal energy explosion that swallows the entire building in a flash of light. It's a total whiteout, blinding everyone, and the entire district is just stunned into silence as the light finally fades. And the Crimson Reaper, yeah, he's just gone, leaving nothing but a blackened silhouette of ash burned into the ground as our boy Jinyan looks on. His expression is pure ice. This was him taking out the trash, and he turns to the remaining bandits, basically asking them what their purpose even is. Shaking down the weak, collecting protection money from helpless people, none of that can be called real strength, and his gaze locks onto one of the thugs. He demands an answer, but not a single one of them dares to make a sound. With a voice dripping in menace, Jinyan warns them that if anyone wants to flex their power, they better go through him first. Otherwise, they'll end up just like that pile of ash over there, which is when one bandit tries to scrape together whatever courage he has left. He yells for the others not to be scared and to just attack, cause hey, it's just one guy, right? But it's too late. The chatter is already spreading like wildfire among the onlookers. The one undeniable fact is starting to sink in for everyone. The Crimson Reaper is totally cooked, leading some to wonder who this new kid on the block is, while others hope this means no more protection fees. And of course, some are worried he's just going to become the new boss. But in the crowd, Jul Myung-ho stands there totally calm, putting his mask back on. He announces that nobody needs to worry. Lee Jin-aeon is not the kind of guy who extorts people. You can see the doubt on everyone's face, but Kol Myung-ho just doubles down with total confidence. See, our boy Jin-yeon is already loaded. He doesn't need anyone's pocket change, and with that, Kol Myung-ho goes right back to swinging his umbrella, perfectly counting out every single consistent movement. As he watches Jinyan mop the floor with the rest of the bandits, a realization hits him that every single person has that fire inside them, and it's their own responsibility to keep it from burning out. Lee Jin-aeon is literally on an ascension path to a higher tier of power. That same insane hunger for power, the kind that borders on madness, is now pushing Kol Myung-ho to reconsider his own path. The words our MC dropped on him earlier are replaying in his head, stuck there like a tattoo on his brain. That question of whether he was a rat or a poisonous fox, it forced him to take a hard look in the mirror, and suddenly, Kol Myung-ho's eyes widen. Then he says it out loud with unshakable belief. "I'm not a rat. I'm a poisonous fox." And on that very same day, our boy Jin-yeon gets back to the Yunha merchant group and goes straight to his room, only to be surprised to see Hwa-yeon already there. His little brother, who was reading, immediately looks up with a super worried expression and calls out his name in a low voice. He asks where Jin-yeon went, all while our MC is just standing in the doorway, literally covered in blood. He plays it off super casually, saying he just went out for a drink, and then asks why Hwa-yeon is in his room to begin with. But Hwa-yeon's gaze is locked on the blood, and his voice is all uneasy as he asks what actually happened. Just then, a servant walks in with a new carpet, and Lee Jin-yeon explains deadpan that none of the blood is his. Hwa-yeon shoots back a quick, "Yeah, no, duh," as our boy starts to get cleaned up. Then Hwa-yeon switches topics, mentioning that elixir he was given before, saying it worked like an absolute charm. He even admits he's been thinking about a thank you gift for whoever sent that OP potion to the merchant group. Even the dad is racking his brain over this one. Hwa-yeon chimes in like, "Bro, is this elixir really that big of a deal?" Our boy Jin-yeon instantly clocks the sender. It's the Taiho merchant group, the owners of the Azurite essence, and he explains, "You literally can't put a price tag on this stuff." Not even he knows the full value, and Hwa-yeon is absolutely shook, demanding to know what's up. Like, how do you even begin to pay back a gift that's basically priceless? Jin-yeon shuts that down quick, saying throwing money or items at this is just disrespectful. This gift is on a whole other level, way beyond material wealth. So when Hwa-yeon asks for the game plan, our boy Jin-yeon drops his master plan with zero hesitation. He wants to build a merchant association, and Hwa-yeon just freezes, repeating the words like he just saw a ghost. Jin-yeon starts laying out the strategy. See, some of the people who sent elixirs are heavy hitters, like the Taiho merchant group, but then you've also got The little guys like the West Wind escort establishment who have basically zero defensive power on their own. So, if they form this association and give everyone a protection buff, it's the perfect way to repay the debt. But Huion's looking skeptical. Isn't this plan a bit much? He asks. But Jinion's like, nah, chill. We don't need to go from 0 to 100 instantly. For now, we'll just keep it to the beta testers, the Taiho Merchant Group, and the West Wind Escort Establishment. Since cash is just a mid-tier reward for this quest, they've got to pay it back with something OP like total protection. So, naturally, Huion starts asking about the guild rules and membership fees. Jinion wants to keep the rule set super chill for now. We're going old school with this, running it like the ancestors did. And get this, it's free to play. No membership subscription required. So Huion asks what the main quest objective is here, and Jinion pauses for a sec, getting a flashback of all the people he's met. He's seen so much on his journey, and then he says it. The mission is to protect the lives of every single merchant out there. On top of that, they're setting up a high-speed comms network, like a guild Discord server, so they can speedrun any problems that pop up. Huion is totally on board with this, nodding along, but he's already thinking about the endgame, content raising a valid concern. He's like, what happens when a raid boss shows up that even the Taiho Merchant Group's elite players can't handle? Jinion knows exactly what that means. If a threat like that appears, they have officially entered the hardcore PvP zone of the Jianghu. And if that day comes, he's already got a contingency plan locked and loaded. He declares with ice in his veins that he'll handle it himself. Huion freaks out, his voice cracking as he practically yells at him. Like, are you for real? Does his brother actually plan on jumping into the fray? And Jinion just calmly reminds him about that little gift they received. You know, the one that was literally priceless and gave him a massive power-up. So, Huion has to ask, did that thing actually make you stronger? Our boy just gives a simple yep, and that's all it takes. Huion's hype levels go through the roof. He slams the table, ready to go. He's asking what they're going to call this new guild, throwing out the Great Merchants Alliance as an idea. But Jinion cringes at that, getting a flashback to the whole Crimson Reaper Alliance fiasco. So he makes a call. They'll use the name, but they're dropping the word alliance from the title. Yeah, he's not a fan of that word, and Huion's cool with it already, hyped to get the whole thing set up. But just as he's about to dip, he turns back and complains that ever since Jinion came back, his workload has basically tripled. He lets out a huge sigh, admitting he's been grinding non-stop. Jinion offers a low-key apology, but Huion is grinning from ear to ear because for a merchant, being swamped with work is the best problem to have. Jin just kind of scoffs at that. Before they can even get another word in, though, a loud shout echoes from outside, calling for the young master and the chief administrator. A guard just bursts through the door, looking pale as a ghost, and out of breath, screaming that it's all over. Everything is cooked. The two brothers whip their heads around at the same time, and Huion demands to know what the hell is going on. The guard starts screaming again, his voice all shaky, basically yelling that they were totally cooked because Patriarch Ouyang had rolled up in person with his whole crew, and hearing that name made Huion absolutely freeze up, while Jin's eyes went sharp as daggers. Then, over in the main hall of the Eonha Merchant Group, Patriarch Ouyang Seng is just sitting there, taking a long drink, before he straight up smashes his cup down on the table. The dude is having flashbacks of the L his clan took during that big meeting with all the rulers, and it's making him fume all over again. He's literally seething. He growls that just thinking about it makes his blood pressure skyrocket. He turns to his three disciples, his own sons, and drops the quest objective on them. Every single one of them has to fight Jin. Just one W isn't going to be enough to restore the clan's clout, he says with a voice colder than a server room, making it crystal clear that Jin better not get a quick and easy ending. Ouyang Sayang demands to know if they get it, and all three of them snap to attention, saying they understand. One of them, Shin Sobayek, who married into the family, asks if they're going to be using weapons since he's used to throwing hands bare knuckle, which he doesn't mind at all. The second son, Ouyang Myong, just smirks, saying he also prefers his fists, claiming it just feels way more personal and satisfying that way. The third son, Ouyang Wun, kinda hesitates, admitting he's not feeling it and will probably use his sword. Myong immediately throws him a look of pure disgust, roasting his little brother for being shook over a merchant's kid. But Ouyang Wun claps back, reminding him, Jin beat Ouyang Hu, even if he was just a distant relative. That Ouyang Hu guy was still a seasoned martial artist from the Jianghu scene. Ouyang Myong's eyes narrow, and he just waves that excuse away, saying Ouyang Hu only lost because his skills were mid. He signals for another drink and orders them to drag Jin out here, like right now. Just then, the twin bodyguards who work for the Unham merchant group walk over delivering a message. Their young master is inviting them over to the side pavilion, and once he's done with his chow, he'll see them there. Ouyang Mayong looks genuinely shocked by the sheer size of these two dudes and can only give a stiff little nod. The whole Ouyang clan gets escorted to the pavilion, and as the curtain is pulled back, their arrival is announced into the small arena inside. And there, standing right in the middle of the room, is our boy Jin. He's totally calm, just wrapping his hands in bandages. Jin welcomes them, mentioning they must be tired from their trip, and the disciples bow, introducing themselves. One by one, Jin cracks a little smirk, saying he's surprised the patriarch himself decided to show up. Ouyang Sayang gives a slight nod back, a faint smile on his face, as he explains that he just had to see Jin's skills with his own eyes. So Jin cuts to the chase, saying they're here for a duel, so they might as well decide on the format right now. Ouyang Sayang replies that his sons are just here to learn a little something from a good fight. He lays down the rules of the game: get pushed out of the arena, pass out, or become unable to move. And it's a loss. Jin's smile gets a little wider. Simple rules, easy enough, and he tells them to bring on the first match. Ouyang Mayong is the first to step into the ring, and from his seat, Ouyang Sang's eyes get narrow, a cold smile playing on his lips.